Hi, everyone, and welcome to the official debrief live stream. We are coming to you, bringing you live coverage of the Perseverance Mars rover landing. So we're really excited here today. We've got a lot to share with you. Huge lineup of guests today. So I just want to thank everybody who's joining in, who's tuning in. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do some amazing stuff. We're going to talk to some amazing people, and I couldn't be more excited. So for those of you who know the debrief and have been following us for a while, I just want to thank you personally. I want to thank you for joining us today because we have got a lot coming at you and it's going to be pretty freaking explosive. And I am very excited. And I want you guys to know that this is an interactive live stream. So if you're just joining us and you have questions, thoughts, ideas that you want to share, feel free to throw those in the live chat comments, and I'll be reviewing those and we'll be taking questions throughout. We've got a lot of folks joining us today. We've got the founding team of the debrief. We've got Tim McMillan joining us. We've got Micah Hanks joining us. Ryan Sprague will also be here. We've got Jazz Shaw, Christopher Plain. Just a huge amount of people. We've got Chrissy Newton, who's going to be joining us here very shortly. So I just want to say welcome, everyone, and how excited we are. So let's see. We've got Brendan Seifert. Does anybody have any good Moss jokes? Make sure that everybody will liken them, though. Oh, man, that's so cheesy. That's right up my alley. I appreciate you bringing that. We've got Lou from the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Welcome, Lou. It's great to have you all here today. Again, this is a live interactive hang. Oh, look, MJ Benias is joining us. He's going to hang out in the chat. He won't be joining us live today because, you know, he's just a very, very busy man. So again, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to have the live from NASA here as well. I'm going to be sharing screen with you and going through a bunch of that stuff as well. But I just wanted to talk real quick about some of the facts of the mission. There are, we've been waiting for this for a long time. The Perseverance rover was actually launched in July of 2020, and it has traveled 293 million miles to rendezvous with Mars. And I think the really exciting thing about this is in kind of this day and age where people question science and things like that, I think it's so important to understand the math and the science that goes on behind the scenes to make something like this happen. The ability to launch a rover and have it hit Mars 293 million miles, pretty much down to the second. We're projecting a launch, or we're projecting the 7 minutes of terror today to occur starting at 3:38 p.m. Eastern time. For those of you who don't know what the 7 minutes of terror is, it's the horrifying time between Mars getting to the atmosphere and then landing on the planet's surface. And so there's a little bit of a delay. I think it's like 11-minute delay between the actual Mars rover communication systems back to Earth. So we'll know by time the Mars rover has actually landed on the planet's surface, we'll have a very clear idea of what's going on. But let's see. I just want to go through some of these numbers with you. So the size of the rover, it's 10 feet long. It's 9 feet wide, 7 feet high. It weighs 2,260 pounds with a top speed of 0.1 miles per hour. And unlike previous rovers that relied on solar power, this rover is actually powered by a nuclear battery. Traveled 293 million miles, and it's got so many cool things attached to this thing that we've never seen before. We'll actually start to see, once the rover actually lands, we should start to get images back from the rover within about 11 to 15 minutes after that landing. So we're going to be broadcasting live from those NASA shots as well after the landing. But it's really freaking amazing. So it's got a huge suite of cameras, radar sensors. It's got an arm with a drill. So for those of you who don't know, one of the main missions of Mars is to cache the Earth from the planet's surface. So it'll actually be drilling into the planet's surface, and then it's got this extraordinary engineering mechanism that lifts it up and then puts it in its belly. So we'll be collecting those samples from Mars, and it's really interesting because we're not going to get those back. We're not going to get those back with the Perseverance rover. NASA is launching other recovery ships to bring that back. So it's a pretty extraordinary process, and we're going to dig deep into that. But first, I want to share with you some cool stuff that Chrissy Newton did. this year. So if you give me just 1 second, I'm going to share a pretty cool video from Chrissy that I think you're going to love.
And at thedebrief.org for updates on the landing.
Oops, start it over.
After nearly 300 million miles on February 18th, NASA's Mars Perseverance rover will touch down on the red planet. Some quick info nuggets about the new rover. 1. Main job: seek signs of ancient life and collect samples of rock and regolith for possible return to Earth. 2. The launch date was July 30th, 2020. 3. Landing February 18th, 2021. 4. Landing site, Jezero Crater, Mars. Mainly, the new rover is designed to better understand the geology of Mars and seek signs of ancient life. Now, how exciting is that?
Pretty
Follow
damn
along on social
exciting.
media and at thedebrief.org for updates on the landing.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with, let me come back to screen here. For those of you who aren't familiar with the debrief, make sure you check us out at thedebrief.org. We have an entire host of Mars articles coming out that have been coming out throughout the week, and that will continue to come out throughout the week. And we've just got some amazing things going on there. We've got Mike DeMonte joining us a little bit later, and he wrote a piece about War of the Worlds from the radio broadcast in 1938. So for those of you who don't remember that or weren't around for that, I remember when I was a kid and my dad telling me about it and how extraordinary it was, because they didn't let folks know ahead of time that it was not real, and it just caused this huge amount of craziness and striking fear in people's hearts. So that's going to be a fun one to talk about. Jas Shaw is going to be joining us to talk about terraforming Mars and what he learned while writing about that. We've also got Micah Hanks. And Micah Hanks is one of the founders of the Debrief, and he wrote a piece for us about humanity's fascination with the red planet. That's going to be really interesting, and it's going to kind of take us into what is propelling the philosophy and the inspiration for us to move towards Mars and explore Mars. Not to mention, what we've seen with SpaceX and their current ability and vision and passion to colonize Mars. We've also got Ryan Sprague joining us today. I'm really excited about that. He's going to be talking about where the actual touchdown is going to be happening. He's got a great piece up on the Debrief. So again, if you're not familiar with the Debrief, I want to welcome you. We have just launched our YouTube channel within the past 3 weeks, really bringing you guys some amazing content, some amazing interviews. We just did an interview with Avi Loeb a couple days ago. We do interviews with folks who are breaking new science, new tech. It's really about futurism. It's not just about what we're seeing today, but it's about what we can expect, what we can analyze, and what we can see coming down the path. And I think so many great opportunities exist for us to really look at who and what are the movers and who are the movers and shakers, what's going to be happening, and what that means for the global future of humanity. So I get goosebumps just kind of talking about this stuff, but it's really exciting because there are so many people out there. There are so many journalists who are so dedicated to bringing great stories. And we at the Debrief want to unpack those stories. We want to unpack the science for you. We want to unpack the technology so that you can understand it, so that I can understand it. And we can really get a grip on the direction we're heading as a species and as a planet. So I'm really excited. We've got a ton of amazing guests today. I've got Chrissy Newton is just joining us. Let me hit the. Let me make sure we're all caught up on comments here. So we've got. Wow, we got a lot of comments. Okay, so let's see. The Unidentified Celebrity Review. Thanks, dude. Your channel. I found this one. Keep up the great. All right. So the Unidentified Celebrity Review brought us new viewers. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Lou. Yeah, we're really excited today. I'm gonna pop Chrissy here on, and let's see if we can hear her okay. Unfortunately, Chrissy had some dental work done, and so she's got a bit of a puffy face, so she's just going to be joining us by audio. How are you, Chrissy?
I'm good. How are you? I am the Pokeroo, apparently, of the debrief. If anyone knows what that is, it's a total Canadian reference.
What can you explain the reference? Because only probably
Yeah,
MJ
sure.
Benias knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, so when we were younger, everyone's only seen me, what I look like. They actually haven't seen me in person yet in the debrief or on the debrief. So back in the day, Pokeroo was this cartoon, or sorry, not cartoon, it was a kid's show where people didn't know if he existed or not. So one person would see the Pokeroo, but nobody else would. So it would just show up. It's a kids program. So if you're Canadian, you'll laugh because you'll know what that means. So I'm the Pokeroo of the debrief.
That's
How are
amazing,
you?
and I'm fantastic. I really appreciate you joining us. This is going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. You're doing great. I was tuned in before, so I'm excited. I love the debrief. It's such a great show.
Yeah, yeah, the debrief is amazing. It's an amazing team, and what we've really been able to do here with just some amazing folks, amazing writers. But you have been doing some extraordinary work for the debrief with your video projects, and the ones I just shared about Perseverance and the helicopter. Can you kind of walk us through your experience making those videos, what you found most fascinating, and yeah, can you kind of just share that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the Perseverance rover is amazing because, well, it's going to be looking for ancient life on Mars. And I think that's really unbelievable on its own because we know that there's been existence of water at some point in time. So now we're looking for microbial life. And I think as a human species, that's really unbelievable. My other favorite part is the Ingenuity helicopter.
Mm.
Now, I love when something has a sidekick. I think that's my favorite. And the person did, it's a sidekick. It's a cool sidekick.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. So the Ingenuity helicopter is the first powered flight that will ever happen on Mars. So that's pretty amazing on its own. So be the first powered flight. It's very weightless. It only weighs 4 pounds. And I'm not sure if you played this video before. Maybe I missed that. Will you be playing this later?
Did I not play? I thought I played. Let's play it right now if we yeah,
Yeah,
let's play,
sure.
let's do it. Let's do it right now.
With minimal commands from Earth, sent in. Everybody always loves a good sidekick. So it looks like the Perseverance rover won't be alone on Mars. 5 things you should know about the Ingenuity helicopter. It's the first test of a powered flight on another planet. Built to be light and strong enough to stow away under the rover while on the way to Mars. The helicopter weighs only less than 4 pounds. Powerful enough to lift off in the thin Mars atmosphere. The atmosphere of Mars is really thin, less than 1% the density of Earth's. The helicopter may fly up to 90 seconds to distances of almost 980 feet at a time, and about 10 to 15 feet from the ground. You want to know my favorite part? It flies on its own, without any human control. It must take off, fly, and land with minimal commands from Earth, sent in advance. Now that you're up to date with the Ingenuity helicopter, head over to our social media pages, follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and go to thedebrief.org. Bye!
Oh man, I love it. I love I love the fact that you love the sidekick so much. So in reality, are you the leader in your walk of life, or are you the sidekick? What's your preference?
I play both. I play a leader and I play a sidekick. So outside of this, I have a podcast too that I do. So I have a really great co-host. So some days I play the leader and some days I play the sidekick. So I'm good in both perspectives. I think they're both needed, right?
Can you share what that podcast is and where people can find it?
Yeah, for sure. I have a podcast called Alt Pop Repeats. So we talk about how counterculture turns into or becomes mainstream pop culture. So we look at different stories from drag, from cannabis. We have a new one coming out tomorrow, actually. So yeah, check it out. Go to altpoprepeat.com. But besides all this, Mars is, and we're landing today. So I think that, yeah, it's really, really exciting. So I can't wait to see the sidekick in action. That's going to be probably one of my favorite parts, to see it fly, because it's the first time it's ever going to be. We've had different rovers on Mars, but we've never had something actually be piloted and self-piloted, which I think is really cool.
Right. So there is no active human control going on. So is everything just pre-programmed? Like how exactly are they able to pull this off?
Yeah, so it's pre-programmed. So what it's done is its commands are given on Earth, and then when it lands, I don't know exactly when they're going to take off with the Ingenuity helicopter, but the idea is then once it's probably ready to and programmed, then it will take off. So it does all its own commanding. It's like its own little machine working itself out there. It's supposed to give a better perspective in the region and the geology as well too, so that in the distant future, if astronauts ever decide, or at some point when we go to Mars, that we'll have a better aerial view of what Mars looks like. So it's like a drone, but like a really cool version, and it goes underneath the Perseverance rover, so it's like attached to it too. It's like I don't know. It's what is that called when you back in the day when they had something that turned into something else? What is that
A
called?
transformer?
Transformer. Like I don't know. I really love it.
No, that's amazing. And one of the exciting things is because when they were engineering this extraordinary machine, one of the biggest fears was, well, Mars has a very thin atmosphere.
Yeah.
How do we actually get this thing to fly? Do you have any information that's like how they mastered that, or why they decided that it was even possible?
I didn't see anything on the NASA website based on that, but they did say that the demonstration that they're doing is solely based on technology. It has nothing else to do to support the 2020 mission. So, or the rover mission. So it's really just a technology demonstration to see how things would actually fly on Mars. But no, I didn't see any information on
Right.
that. So I will.
No, that's really right. So that's really interesting. So this is kind of a high risk, high reward type scenario, right? Because if this thing actually works and flies, this is going to be the prototype for everything that comes after it. And I think that's so powerful because, the rover is extraordinary, but it doesn't have the capabilities to climb. It doesn't have the capabilities to move as quickly. I mean, the thing runs at 0.1 miles per hour, but the helicopter gives us the ability to get to higher ground. It gives us the ability to get images from different places. And this could be a huge opportunity for NASA and future space exploration and colonization to be able to, really understand the Mars landscape. We have satellite data. We can see, we can map the place, but getting that low ground, visual is going to be critical for Mars exploration in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be beautiful. We don't really see these, it's hovering, pretty close to the ground. So we don't really see all these aerial views. We see, larger aerial views, and then we see ground aerial views. So it's a different perspective, which I'm excited to see.
Right. And for those of you just joining us, I've got Chrissy Newton here, and we're discussing Perseverance. We're discussing the Mars landing. We're going to be broadcasting live as the Mars landing happens, as Perseverance touches down, which is really exciting. Make sure you check us out. You subscribe to the Debrief YouTube channel. We're going to be launching a audio podcast coming up very, very soon, which I'm super excited about. And check out the debrief.org as well. And we've got a ton of guests today. Chrissy is joining it. Where are you joining us from, Chrissy? Where are you located? Are you where in Canada are you?
I'm based in Toronto. And cold. You should see my view right now. It's pretty. It's like the typical way that you would think of Canadians, where it's snowing. It's really snowing. But I'm in a great city. Toronto's a wonderful city.
I'm in Orlando. It's hot and muggy today, and I'll take it over what you've got any day.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
Ryan Sprague says the debrief is my lifeblood. Ryan is the man. Ryan's going to be joining us a little bit later, which I'm super excited about. He's got a Mars piece that came out this week. Rodrigo says Ingenuity covers the perfect altitude. Drone tech has been an amazing tool to quickly understand the archaeological sites. And Dixon says, how deep can the Perseverance dig into the ground? I know they're looking for alien fossils. How deep do they have to dig for that? Do you want to answer that, Christy? I've got some thoughts as well.
I don't know how. I'm assuming that they're probably going to really have to dig. Let's be honest. I don't know how far they would be, but they're going to have to. Mars is pretty old.
Yeah, but they're not going that deep. So and I'd like for somebody else who has better knowledge on this to pop in, and we've got a lot of guests coming on to help us as well. I don't know the exact depth, but I know it's they've got the drill arm that goes into the ground, and they're collecting sample caches. And from what I understand, the caches are only like a pencil thick. So they're really looking into microbial life. So they're not looking for they're looking for single cell biological fossils of life. So we're not looking for dinosaurs here yet. They're actually landing on the Jezero crater, and that's a harsh surface feature that was likely once a deep lake fed by rivers of running water. And that crater was created by just a giant blast. And then later we believe that it was filled with water. So the reason that we're looking in that crater is because, for a couple of reasons. Number one is we can the ground is not too difficult to maneuver on, so it's actually good for the Mars rover. And also, where water is the most possible place to actually find life. So super exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. Did you find out if they're actually going to be doing anything live within, like, I know live today, but within the next couple days and within the next couple months?
So I don't know about live. I know they're going to be. So once the rover lands, they're going to be transmitting images pretty much immediately. But I don't know if they'll be able to do. I don't know if they'll be doing anything like video tech live or anything like that. Once we hit the 7 minutes of terror, we'll be flipping over to follow NASA, and we'll be all holding our breath together.
Yeah, seriously.
So what brought you to the debrief, Chrissy? Like, what was it about the debrief that inspired you to be like, you know what, I want to get on board with that. This seems like a cool project.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I saw Ryan Sprague as a friend, and then, well, first of all, the debrief launched, and they had the photo that came out that was leaked from the Pentagon. And I love ufology, so I like the concept of an academic form of UFOs. So I ended up seeing that, and I went, hold on, what is this website, and how did they have this, and who are these wonderful people? And then, so I looked into it, and then I was following along for the longest time, and then I saw Ryan Sprague decided to do his first article. So then I reached out to Ryan. I was like, what's going on here? Like, I've been following you guys. You're talking about ufology, all this like really cool defense stuff, all this science and technology. So then I followed MJ and Tim and everybody, obviously on social media, because I became addicted. And then after that, I reached out to MJ and said, I'd love to be part of this. You know, outside of anything ufology, I love tech, I love science, I love learning about it. You know, in my day job, I work as a publicist. So on the other side of me, for sure, there's things in the science and tech side that I always watch. It's what I consume. And so then that's how I landed with you guys, which I'm really excited to be, because it's a really cool family to be part of, and we're doing some really great stuff. And it's very different than what other tech and science and defense websites are doing. So
it is. It was so cool. Like, I remember when I first, because I hit up MJ, I'm like, you guys don't have a podcast or a YouTube channel yet. I wonder if I could be of service here. He was like, sure, let's go. And it was really great. And so, you know, I'm finding, you know, one of the things that's so cool about the debrief, and if you're, by the way, we're looking for writers. So if, you know, we're a very small family here at the debrief, and, you know, we are a startup, and really excited. I mean, we've got, you know, the founders are just amazing. Micah Hanks, Tim McMillan, and MJ Banias, who really put this thing together. You know, they've written for Vice magazine. They've broken some pretty amazing stories over the years, especially in 2020. You know, but it's really cool because, you know, we're all just kind of coming on and doing our part and so they launched the Signal group chat a couple of weeks ago for everybody who's joined and who's helping out. And I swear to God, like, it was the coolest group chat I've ever been in. Like, the most amazing people, you know, who are so passionate. And that's the cool thing. This is not about you know, us trying to, you know, be popular and make money. This is about people who are passionate about futurism, about science, about cutting edge technology, who want to create something and distill the information. I think one of the most difficult things is, you know, we have such information overload in this world, and it's very difficult to know what to focus on and what's the truth and what matters. And so that's really our driving philosophy here at the debrief, is to understand the latest in technology, understand the latest in UAP revelation, understand the latest in science, and be able to take that information and break it down so that we can understand it, analyze it, and then what does that mean for the future? What direction are we headed? And I think that's kind of, for me, that's the funnest thing about the debrief, is the people and the real mission, the drive to get the truth and share it in a way that helps people understand it and has us looking forward.
Yeah, the past, present, and future concept. That's what made me really excited too when I was talking to MJ and everyone else. I like the fact that the debrief has this kind of layman's terms where they make it easy to understand what's happening, but also makes it fun and then cool. And it's not stuffy. Like all the writing's really great, and it's different than I find than any other site. So yeah, and I think I don't know, I'm just biased. I think we're all doing a good job. We're all working together, and it is a really great team. When I was on that Signal chat, I was like, "This is amazing." I'm like, everybody's for everywhere. Like, everyone's in a different city or a country, so and
Right.
everyone's perspective is different. So I think that also really gives a really great, overall layout of how we look at science, tech, and defense, because everyone has a different, life or a different experience that they've come from, and what they see and how they perceive things and how they read it as well. So yeah, it's
Ex-
cool.
yeah, exactly. And we've got some funny people here too. Chris Plain, he used to be a stand-up comedian. Like he's
Yeah.
got me like rolling on the floor every damn day.
Yeah, yeah. I met Chris recently. I did my first like live chat with him, and I was like, "Hey, oh my god, like so crazy!" I'm like, we need to have like a little live stream party or something. But
Oh, that would be a great idea to go live and just bring the entire debrief crew. And I mean, we're doing that today. So if you're just joining us, we've got Micah Hanks, who's one of the founders, coming on. We've got Tim McMillan coming on a little later. We've got Chris Plain coming on. I mean, we've got Ryan. I'm sorry, was I screwing up his name? Is it Sprague and not Sprague? Have I been calling him Sprague?
right,
He's gonna kill me.
Dude, Ryan's listening right now, and he's like, "Really, guys?"
Oh, no, that's amazing. The Garden Forgotten by Time says, make the debrief a Discord server. We must share memes and worship Tim, Micah, and Banias in peace.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Let's see what else we got here from the comments that are just rolling in. Chris Plain says, whatever. So he's being humbly annoying, and that's fine, Chris. You can be humbly annoying as long as you bring the pain later. Rodrigo says, we want Banias too. Banias can't be. He's in the chat, guys. He's in. Oh, there he is. He says he's here. Banias is here. Unfortunately, he can't be joining us on video today, but we did an interview with MJ Banias. So if you have not seen the MJ Banias interview, make sure you open up a new tab. Don't lose this tab, but go bookmark that interview to watch later. And we have a good time in that interview as well. Let's see. Nimitz says, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. They deserve it, providing all the work for the community. Thank you so much for that. It means the world to us. We could be here in a room and like just chatting with ourselves, but it's not about us. It's about the people who follow the debrief. It's about people who want to get to the truth, no matter wherever it leads. So it's pretty amazing group of people, huh?
Yeah, and also like tweet us, send us notes, tell us what you want us to cover, because I'm excited about that. I love learning. Obviously I talk to the guys about what we're going to cover in general, but and I also have the stuff that I like that I cover, but I also want to know what other people like. So tell us, like, tweet us, message us, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can keep up to date what's going on. If you don't like something, tell me, because I like to know that too, or tell us, because then we know what direction we're going. So yeah, like, we're always open for conversation. So
that's a fantastic point. And just as this live stream is meant to be interactive to engage with those of you who are watching and listening, the debrief is designed to be interactive. So when you're on Twitter, if you have things that you want us to cover, and I'm always looking for new stories to cover as well. So we do an interview here on the debrief. Chrissy does her tech reviews, but we also do a deep dive video concept. We've been working on it as a recap, but now we're kind of thinking, let's go deeper. Let's take the subjects that people really care about, and let's make a really cool investigative journalistic piece about that. So if you have things that, stories that are breaking or things that you want to hear about, we're listening. And make sure you can tweet me at Calamity Mike. You can tweet Chrissy at Miss Vocab. You can tweet at Debrief Media to give us those stories and let us know what you're interested in.
Yeah, if a story breaks and we're covering it, or you've got a tip or anything like that, if you've got a comment and for sure. Like we're there to follow along and listen. So my phone's beside me. Yeah.
You can tweet Chrissy right now, folks, at Miss Vocab. That's exciting. Graham Rendell says, Mike, say hi to those of us here in the UK. Welcome to our UK viewers. It's great to have you. MJ Benaya says, Portuguese ufology is kick ass. We've got some amazing folks joining us. Continue to let us know. We're going to be doing a deep dive into Mars Week here at the Debrief today. We're going to be going into folks who have written articles about Mars for the Debrief. Again, we've got Ryan Sprague. Wait. Okay, hold on one second. He says Sprague. Sprague. Like an egg. Sprague.
Sprague.
Thank you, Ryan. Paul says, hi from the UK. Hi, Paul. Again, welcome, guys. We've got just a huge show for us today. Up next is going to be, shortly, we've got Jazz Shaw joining us at what time? 2:55. So in about 10 minutes, he's going to be joining us to talk about the terraforming of Mars. And that's going to be, a really interesting topic of which I know nothing about. So I'm going to be picking his brain. And if you guys have questions that you want to ask Jazz about terraforming of Mars, make sure that you prep those now. You might not want to send them in the comments right now, or maybe you do, but I might get lost because the comments are going to go way up. So just make sure you have those questions in mind when he drops on. Randolph says, Debrief needs a mascot. I nominate a Jetpack Person along with a Jetpack Person weekly update segment.
That sounds great.
That's an awesome idea. The Jetpack segment. Who can find that guy? Somebody's got to be able to find that guy.
I think that's the point. He has a jetpack. He's gone.
He's gone. He's out of here. What time is the expected landing? So let me give you the 7 minutes of terror update. And again, Chrissy, I said this before, but I just think it's so freaking cool how you can launch you can launch in July, I think Perseverance was launched. And it traveled 293 million miles. And they knew from the launch, the math is so good. They knew from the launch that they would be entering Mars atmosphere at 3:38 p.m. Eastern time. So at 3:38 is the cruise stage separation. At 3:48, 7 minutes of terror begins with atmospheric entry. 3:49, moment of peak heating, 2,400 degrees this thing is going to hit. 70-foot parachute deployment. 3:52, heat shield separation, 20 seconds after parachute. 3:54, Perseverance separates from the protective back shell and parachute. And at 3:55, Perseverance touches down in Jezero crater. We'll get that confirmation about 11 minutes afterward. And that's when the cameras will go live, and then they'll start transmitting images directly from Mars. Can you tell us a little bit more about the landing and kind of the gear and how that's actually going to happen?
From when is it going to be? They haven't said anything about when it's actually going to, when obviously, the rover's going to take off. I don't know on that side, but we know that it's.
I was more talking about like the landing, because previously, the previous Mars landers, like they were surrounded in these giant bubbles, and they just kind of dropped them down. But this is going to be a parachute,
right?
A process, right?
Yeah, it didn't actually say when I was looking into just the rover itself and that, but I did see that it will be a parachute landing that it drops. So I'm imagining that NASA knows what it's doing on that, and it's going to land. And it's also very amazing. It's, it's like very Mission Impossible of a landing. If it's dropping out of this amazing parachute and landing. So we'll see how it goes. But I would imagine, like, when you're getting instantaneous updates like this, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so cool. And again, so we're going to be once we actually hit the 7 minutes, we're going to be going live to NASA. So you can see behind me here, we've got NASA live streaming behind me, and we're going to switch that to the main screen when we get a little closer. So that's really exciting. And if you're just joining us again, make sure you say hello. Say hello in the comments. If you have ideas for stories and things that you want to see coming out of the debrief, make sure that you tweet us at Debrief Media. We've got a lot to share. So, Christy, can you kind of tell us what your next piece is going to be for us? What you're planning for releasing next week?
Great question. I'm going to talk about CERN.
Mm.
Yeah, I love the concept of CERN. So CERN is now working on cancer treatment, which is really amazing. So yeah, they've had 260,000 people that they've treated. I believe
CERN? Really?
Exactly. That's why I decided to do the piece, because it just recently came out. A press release came out, I believe, last week, about a week and a half ago. So when I saw that, I sent it over to MJ, and I was like, this is really cool, because we don't ever look at CERN as doing anything in healthcare, right? We look at it as a particle collider. We don't really think about it that it might help us to keep us alive. If anything, we just think that they're smashing particles over there on the Hadron Collider. So yeah, that's why I decided to do the piece, because we can look at CERN in a different way if other people don't ever actually follow what they're doing over there. So I do a little bit of a breakdown of what CERN is, what are the main components of CERN, and then I go into the cancer treatment section of it.
That's fantastic. I had no idea they were working on that. And it is interesting because when, I think one of the things that a lot of folks will say when, when you're thinking about humanitarian issues, they're like, why are we spending all this money to go to Mars? Why are we colliding particles at such high speeds? Are these things really important for the future of humanity? And I think one of the things people often don't recognize is the innovation that comes out of these passion, inspiration-driven projects, because even space exploration, CERN, there's so many technologies that are developed out of these things that actually can benefit humanity. And I think that's often missed or lost or not appreciated.
100%. Like the three things that they're doing there is technical fields, are accelerators, detectors, and computing. So when we look at it and we're like, hey, like we can do other things that are going to help the existence of the environment, safety, and aerospace, and then biomedical applications, like I think medical, I think it's unbelievable. So, and there's all these like rumors and stuff about CERN. So it's nice to give a better like perspective on what's actually happening there, and then how it's actually helping humanity too.
Right. Great point. Yeah. Rodrigo says, exciting news about gravitational waves. The golden age of science is beginning as we speak. It's so exciting. It's fascinating because like Einstein was the one who developed the understanding of gravitational waves, yet he didn't actually believe they existed. And then to discover the existence of them actually is pretty amazing. I had the opportunity to speak with Avi Loeb a few days ago. And again, if you haven't checked out that interview, that's pretty awesome. Go check him out. And he talks about the curiosity of science and how critical it is for us as humans to not get caught up in the getting pats on the back and winning awards and creating a following when it comes to science. We really need to have a childlike curiosity, and that's what I love about him and about that direction of science, because we have some big problems in science. We have some big problems in academia when it comes to really going after the truth and really trying to understand the things that are important rather than just ignoring anomalies.
I agree with you. And I love Avi Loeb for that too. Thinking outside the box and not just always following a specific structure, and then questioning everything as well. And looking at it in different perspectives rather than there's just one mainstream kind of ideology that we've built around it, and science has. So I do love what he's doing as well. And when you interviewed him, I'm like, I'm jealous.
I'm not going to lie to you. When Tim sent the email to me and said, hey, reach out to Avi and see if he'll do an interview, like I fangirled out. Like I was like, and then like he sent me his cell phone. He's like, here's my cell phone. Let me know if you have any problems. And I was like, I have Avi Loeb's phone number, my cell phone.
Right. We're best friends now.
I'm just
exactly.
Oh.
Right now, and he's like, I love the debrief. We're like, we love you too.
Right. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And we've got Jazz Shaw joining us. Chrissy, do you want to stick around and hang out, or you got to go, or where are you at?
I can stick around and hang out for a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. So I'm gonna bring Jazz in here. Add to stream. Jazz Shaw, welcome to the show, my friend.
Greetings, Earthlings.
Hey, Jazz.
How you doing, Chrissy?
I'm good. How are you?
Uh, I'm in New York, so I'm living in the frozen wasteland, which is probably not too dissimilar from Mars, except with more water.
Fair enough. Nice picture behind you, too.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
yes. Yes. All right. So, Jazz, welcome. First of all, thank you so much for what you're doing for the debrief. You've been an amazing contributor, and we really appreciate you having you on board. And I really appreciate you joining in on the call today. Can you tell us a little bit about your new piece about terraforming of Mars?
Yeah, I haven't even checked in the last couple hours because I've been running around like a chicken with his head cut off. I don't even know if it's gone up yet, but yeah, we wanted to focus on Mars this week at the debrief. And one of the subjects that I saw cropping up a little more on the fringe, but not fringe like unbelievable, but the science fringe, was the ongoing discussions that have been happening for 60 years or more about the possibility of terraforming Mars. And I focused on two things. Number one, technologically and physically, could we do it? And number two, is there sort of a ethical question? If we find life on Mars, do we have the right to displace that life entirely and just wipe it out to make new real estate for humans? Or are we crossing an ethical boundary? If we discover a second Genesis on Mars, are we going to start off our relationship with that by having the first genocide on Mars? Assuming it was the first.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a huge ethical question here, and I think this is actually one of the things I brought up to Abby the other day at our interview. We were talking about Elon Musk and the philosophy that drives Elon, and it's really about Mars colonization. But the question is, there's going to be a lot of ethical and philosophical dilemmas as we approach solar system colonization, as we approach Mars colonization. And should somebody like Elon Musk be making those ethical decisions, or do we need to figure out a way of really making those decisions that is beyond just, a driven engineer, entrepreneur type mentality?
I have interviewed a couple of people, and this is going to sound funny to a lot of the people watching, who are space lawyers. There actually is a new branch of law for space law. And we are in completely uncharted waters on this, because can you stop somebody else from sending a probe to the moon? Can we say, oh, the moon's ours, China, you can't send anything there?
Right.
And even in orbit, we have this junkyard in orbit up there. Whose fault is that? Whose responsibility is it to clean it? These are all questions that are going on. And even if the United States, if Elon Musk as, the head of a company, if NASA as the head of one nation space division said, we've decided these are the ethics of the situation. Well, there's been at least five different countries or groups in the case of the EU trying to land stuff, not quite as successfully as the United States, on Mars. There's more on the way. There's a lot of traffic heading up there.
Right.
Who gets to say that? We could say, no, there's not going to be any terraforming because we don't want to wipe out the Martians. And the Chinese could do what the Chinese do pretty much in every circumstance and go, oh, too bad for you, but we're setting up a factory. So no, we don't have those answers. I think there are a lot of challenges ahead of us when it comes to the issue of terraforming. Now, NASA believes, in the most recent statement that I will have linked in my article, that terraforming is still, at this point, completely hypothetical. We don't have the technology to do it. And I give all the reasons in the article. If you want to go into that, we can.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, that article goes live tomorrow. So make sure you're looking at that. Check that out at thedebrief.org. But before you get too deep, could you give us a basis of what actually terraforming is and what sort of technology would be required to achieve it?
Right. So for anybody who's never heard of the term, terraforming is taking another celestial body and that is inhospitable to human life and converting it so that it becomes hospitable to human life. If we follow Elon Musk's plan, people are going to be living in glass domes and whatnot, but you're relying, and I've written about this at the debrief before, you're relying entirely on your technology to keep all those humans alive. And excuse me, I've been dealing with a bit of a winter cold. Um, Anybody who loses their technology out in orbit, in space, on the moon, on Mars, if you lose the technology that's keeping you alive, you're
Right.
dead.
Right.
On the Earth, if you're in a building, let's say, and you're working and it's some sort of potentially caustic environment and a fire breaks out and things, if you can just bust your way out the window or a door, you can get back out into the fresh air and survive. There is nothing like that on Mars. Mars, you will die in a minute, maybe a minute and a half, if you are unprotected out on the surface. So we would need to convert the entire environment. That's a big challenge. There is some carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is 1% of the atmosphere of the Earth. It's not a vacuum, but it's not far off. There is carbon dioxide trapped in some of the materials, but our best estimates so far, according to NASA, there isn't enough carbon dioxide to build up enough, if you will, greenhouse gases to allow the planet to start warming and developing a thicker atmosphere that we could introduce oxygen into and start breathing. And there's also a question of whether or not Mars has enough of a magnetosphere to protect a new atmosphere if we were able to create it, or would it just be stripped away by the solar wind?
Right.
You know, so these are huge challenges, but terraforming is the process of building up an atmosphere that's breathable by humans and being able to produce a sustainable food supply, a sustainable water supply. Currently, water in liquid form does not last very long on the surface of Mars, although it does appear at times. It's a huge challenge. But that's not to say that it's always going to be impossible. Some huge technological breakthroughs in the future might make that possible. But if we do it, if there is anything alive on Mars today, we would probably wipe it out instantly.
Right.
It would change the conditions so it could no longer live. So now we're back to that ethical question. We're back to the terrestrial politics question. Who gets to decide that? Who's going to pay for it? I mean, these are complicated questions.
Right. The complicated questions that are way far out too. I think these are not even technologies we possess yet, but I think your point remains valid and important in that we should be trying to figure these things out now rather than waiting for the technology to be available. Bushibato says, think Project Genesis from Star Trek 2 and maybe Total Recall after for a basic grasp of terraforming. I love Star Trek 2. The Genesis project is amazing.
Yes, can I ask you, how long would it take to terraform? Do we know? Do we have
we're talking from the NASA analysis that I'll link to. If the technology became available to do it, we're talking about something in the range of at least the tens or hundreds of thousands of years. But why do we not let that dissuade us? The other point I bring up in the article, when you get to read it, is that a time is going to come, and physicists are pretty much 100% confident of this. The Earth is not going to be habitable at some point. If we avoid all the other disasters of us destroying ourselves, of another cometary impact like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs, if we survive the continents clashing back together, our sun is turning into a red giant at some point. That's how all the stars of that size work. And as the sun grows, when it starts running out of fuel, it's going to bake the Earth. And in short order, the Earth will be unsurvivable. At that point, ethics might go out the window because Mars is suddenly going to be in the habitable zone and be warm. So there would probably be a great temptation to say, whoever is left here, if there are any humans left, like, wow, we should probably go there because this place is going to suck very shortly,
right.
And start working on that. But maybe the people today who are, working on these problems and trying to answer these questions, like you said, Michael, maybe now is the time to address them and set up some sort of game plan going forward. Because if terraforming becomes possible, then we need to have a firm grasp on what we're doing before we have to find a lifeboat. And if we haven't found a way to get to other star systems with an Earth-like planet, if we're going to survive as a species, we're going to have to build an Earth-like planet, and Mars is almost unarguably the best candidate.
Right, right. Graham says, sounds like we'd have to live in domes and underground for the foreseeable future if the future we wanted to colonize it. What do you think about underground versus terraform?
It's all the same. Whether you are talking about glass domes on the surface, which would survive a lot longer than they would on the Earth, going back to the fact that, look, there are huge dust storms on Mars. Everybody knows this, right? And who follows astrology or astronomy. But they move very slowly and they have very little impetus. I mean, if you're on a dust storm on Mars where the atmosphere is 1% as thick as ours, you're barely going to feel it. So whether you're underground in tunnels, that helps with the radiation factor because there's no protection from radiation on Mars compared to the Earth. Yeah, tunnels might be better for long-term health because you're not going to be getting hit with as much radiation the further you go under the ground. If we find lava tubes, those would be better than glass domes. But in the end, I don't want to sound like a broken record. You're still relying on technology. If you're living in a tunnel and your enclosure fails, everybody's dead in a minute. Or if you have a spacesuit on until your oxygen runs out.
Right.
You know? So that's that. Not a big difference as far as I can tell. I think it's definitely worth doing if we agree that we're not going to be corrupting the native life forms, and you can stay there for longer and longer missions. But, there's also so many risks of the long-term effects of space travel on people. Can we get people there? Can we get them back? Even Elon Musk, who you brought up before, has already said, if my plan goes through, the odds are overwhelmingly that all the people we send on the first mission are going to die on Mars. How long that takes, maybe they'll live the rest of a natural life. Maybe they'll be wiped out next year.
Right.
But odds are nobody's coming back. So there's another set of ethical questions to ask. Are we going to send people to Mars? Well, so long as you're willing to die there, because the odds of getting you back, not good.
Right. And think about the amount of crazy people on Earth. Like there are people, that will be happy to do that. Chrissy, are you going?
You know what? I've thought about this a couple times because I watched Elon Musk's interview with Joe Rogan and saying that, at some point in time, if they do end up coming back, it might just stop because something will probably just happen with the Earth. We'll either, kill our own planet or something else will happen, right? So at some point, it's just going to stop. So we have to be prepared that, and who knows when that's going to happen, to not come back. So long story short, maybe. Maybe. still excited.
Do you guys remember the Mars One project that
No.
came out of, I believe it was Denmark? Yeah, they had a plan set up where they claimed they were going to be ready in something like 4 years to send a mission. And they were charging people, it was in the tens of thousands of dollars to sign up to be one of the people to go. They had 100 times the number of people they said they could take, who immediately said, yes, I will go and I will die, just so long as I can walk on Mars.
Right.
So yeah, we got a ton of explorers. We got a ton of crazy people. But are they any crazier than the Supermen that we had during the early days of space exploration?
Right.
Because we had the Mercury 7, we had those guys, and our government went to the military and said, hey, we need somebody to come up here and sit on top of a 10-story pile of dynamite, and then we're going to light it. Who wants to go? They were fighting each other for slots. And the guys who landed on the moon, they were the ones who were the people when they came and said, we got this crazy new airplane we'd like somebody to try to fly. It might blow up or just fall down and burn. And those were the guys who were like, I'm in,
Right.
So are they crazy or are they heroes? I think that's a valid question to ask.
I think they're both.
Crazy heroes. I'm good with that.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the first person ever, on Earth, I want to know who that person was that was like, I'm going to go from one island to another, and I don't even know what's in that ocean, and I'm just going to go. So we need people like that. So
Mhm.
I praise them. Jazz,
Yep.
can I ask you a question? Is it true that Arctic plants could help terraform Mars?
I'm sorry, I missed one word. Is it true that what could help?
Arctic plants.
Arctic plants.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
I
read
just
that.
saw the article
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it says
Um,
researchers found that Canadian Arctic and Antarctic had the most similarities to the red planet. Is that true?
well, I'm not a scientist in that area or really of any kind, so I certainly couldn't discount it. Uh, One of the compelling arguments I constantly see in these debates doesn't refer so much to the Arctic plants, but to two other things. Number one, the black smokers at the bottom of the ocean. That is totally inhospitable to life, as anyone walking around on the planet knows it. It's deadly. You couldn't live there for a second. You would last much longer on top of one of those black smokers at the bottom of the ocean than you would on the surface of Mars. And yet there are huge colonies of things living there. The second thing is the one incident we had where they found this sort of primitive algae on the window of the International Space Station. And when they went to clean it off, they found out it was on the outside.
Wow.
And there was something living in the vacuum of space being
What?
exposed to the radiation of the sun.
Wow.
And it was really primitive, it was really small. We also know that yeast can exist. They go into a dormant phase, and yeast can exist in space and be brought back. So life is really tenuous. So, is our Arctic plants something you could plant on Mars and maybe they would take root? Uh, who are we to say? Why not? As far as when I heard the stories about the black smokers and the ISS window, I quickly came to the conclusion. I was like, you know what? I bet you the entire galaxy is lousy with life
Right.
because life is so tenacious. And I am not going to be shocked if we find there is still at least microbial life on Mars living under the surface where there's still some water, because we have pictures of water flows. We know there's water under the surface. We know there's water at the poles in the form of ice. And if there's water, why wouldn't there still be life?
Right.
You know?
Right. So if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jazz Shaw about terraforming Mars. We're going to be bringing you the 7 Minutes of Terror here pretty shortly. For those of you who don't know, we are going to be at 3:38 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be following that very closely with NASA. Jazz, if you want to stick around, we're going to bring in Mike DeMonte right now. Mike
Sure.
is the man. You guys are welcome to stick around. And Chrissy, let me know. You're welcome to drop off at any point, but we'd love to have you as long as you'd like to stay. That goes for you too, Jazz. But we want to bring Mike on.
I'm gonna.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, just pause there. I'm gonna head out, but nice to meet you, Jazz, and I'll see you soon.
You too, Chrissy.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Bye.
Okay, bye. So for those of you who don't know Mike, he writes for us here at The Debrief. He's a really amazing guy. Unfortunately, he's been having some power issues over the past couple days, and it's been pretty rough in the Lone Star State. Can you tell us how you're doing today, Mike?
We're good. So somewhat. I mean, power got restored for us today. We still don't have water, so I've been going to the swimming pool, chipping away at ice and snow to kind of fill the toilets. This morning I went out to get water. Yeah, it's a mess. If it was just me, it'd be fine. But I have a pregnant wife, so we need to make sure that her and baby are fed with whatever we can get for now. But we're hoping by the weekend water will be turned on, and yeah.
Do you have a way? Do you have a way to purify or at least boil the water? Or
well, once it gets turned on, the whole city's on a boil notice. So right now, the only water we have is like bottled water. So it's basically just drinking. We have nothing to wash our hands, flush the toilets with. Even though I've been getting pool water, I've been getting water from the pool to pour in the tank. Yeah, this is really fascinating stuff. I know. Yeah, we've been doing that.
Two of the writers from our team, I will tell you, not the debrief team, two other people that I work with on other projects, both are in Texas, and we've been getting scattered updates when they get cell phone reception, and both of them have no heat, no electricity, no running water. They both went out, fortunately, and bought a bunch of water ahead of time, but that's starting to run low. It is grim, and particularly you got a pregnant wife with you, man. My prayers are with you.
Thank you. Like I said, like we're doing okay. It's just, we lucked out in getting our power back, and I was able to track down some bottles of water this morning and some food. So we should be good through the weekend. Fingers crossed. But also fingers crossed for the people who are suffering a lot worse than we are in some of the more rural parts of Texas, where like you said, they don't really have access to stuff like cell phone towers, and people are dying. People are don't know how to handle the cold, so they're trying to keep each other warm, and they're using. They're putting the generators inside and getting carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's real crazy times right now.
Yeah.
It's just
Is it true a lot of the roads are still almost unusable at this point?
Not in Houston. A lot of them are kind of are unmelted. Like I'm looking out the window right now just to see. It's pretty good now, but tonight we're supposed to freeze over again. So yeah, just depends on where you're at. Like I said, right now Houston, we probably got hit one of the hardest in terms of losing power and stuff, but we also have, being a larger city, we have a lot of resources. So a lot of the grocery stores are back up and running, and as well. So yeah, this morning, like I said, they had to stagger people in, and there was a limit in how much water you can get. So yeah, luckily, we have power. And it was funny yesterday. Oh yeah, wait, I'm looking at this really good device, straight into the bowl. We tried that. Yeah, we tried that, and it didn't work too. So. Thank you guys for the plumbing advice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and the love going out to you. Going through this, it's rough, man. So, tell me about. So you wrote a pretty amazing and fascinating piece this week about Orson Welles and the 1938 radio broadcast that he did. Can you kind of give us some background on that and what your reaction to that was doing the research?
Yeah, for sure. So when MJ, he pitched quite a few different things that we're doing this week, and this stood out to me right away. It was kind of right in my wheelhouse because I'm used to writing about this type of stuff. Like my last book that I'm going to shamelessly plug, Fiction, is about kind of normalizing paranormal through pop culture and all these references that we've seen through history, mythology, and specifically our popular culture. So this was stuck out to me right away because I remember. As a kid, I'm not that old. I wasn't around when the broadcast happened, but I remember I used to go with my grandmother. We used to go to the library, and I used to get all the old black and white, like Bela Lugosi, Dracula, the Universal horror movies, and all the sci-fi stuff. And I remember getting something on War of the Worlds. I don't know if it was a documentary or something, but it had the broadcast on it. And I just remember how cool it was. Like as a kid, I was like, man, because it was coming across the news broadcast. It felt really real. And then who would have thought years later I would get involved in journalism. I go to school for it. I work at a newspaper, and then I would write about UFOs and aliens and weird stuff too. So yeah, it actually worked out really well. And the article of researching it just brought back a lot of memories just from what I previously knew about it. It's been years since I've looked into this case. I mean, I've referenced it in my book just because of the historical allusions and kind of what followed from it for sure. But yeah, it was definitely a while since I looked into it, and it fits perfect, I think, with this week. Because it's a totally different element of Mars, what everyone else is writing about, what everyone else is covering and talking about right now.
Right.
Can I ask a question, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I love this story, and other people have covered, of course, in the past. The assumptions that H.G. Wells worked off of were not things he dreamed up. They were things that scientists came up with about there being canals on Mars from some of our earliest telescopic stuff, and assumptions about, those might be, like oceans and things like that. And it turned out as we advanced that we had gotten a lot of the early science wrong, about what the conditions were like on Mars. How much do you think science fiction does bleed over into real current stories, and people have these sort of genetic media memories where some of the information is true, but some of it's way off base? I mean, do you think that's playing into what we're seeing today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's and more so than we know. I'm using the comic books and science fiction and all that pop culture, but there's things that I even learned about the creators of some of these programs and what they were interested in and where they got it from, and just are also writing for the debrief too. A lot of the AI stories I've done in the robotics, it's like as soon as I read this, what does it remind me of? Right, my mind goes right to Terminator. It goes to all these pop culture things. So there's a really good quote. It's in my book. I forgot who said it, but it's basically science fiction eventually becomes science fact.
Right.
And you've seen this through the years. I mean, the science fiction of yesterday is now reality today. So it's just, to me, it's like, all the stuff that we've seen, it's all kind of based on this idea of the endless possibilities, what we can do with science, and it's played out in all our popular culture. But it all comes from somewhere, right? It comes from some inspiration, some science, and even William Shatner. I know MJ interviewed him for The Brief. I interviewed him as well for my website too. And one of the questions I asked him was about, there's this long-running rumor that Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, he was part of this paranormal investigation group where he was channeling entities and speaking to these celestial beings. And Shatner kind of played it off like, oh, he didn't know much of it, but he did allude to the fact that a lot of the the writers of that time were pulling stuff straight from science. Some of them actually had experience in science before becoming these fictional writers. So it's fascinating. Like, you see it everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that is just so extraordinary. You look at some of the pseudoscience from early Star Trek, and that became, like the Motorola fucking flip phone, right? So you've got all of these, right? You've got the imagination, right? And that's what I think is so amazing about science fiction, because it inspires people, and what you can conceive, you can believe, and then you can achieve, right? So it's this kind of art creates life, creates art, creates life, and it's just this potential for us to, really build the future, right? We're not waiting for the future. We're creating it in every moment.
One of my favorite quotes ever, and I apologize at the moment for forgetting who the first person was who said it, was, everything was impossible until some jerk came along and did it.
Yep.
And that was, if you listen to some of Micah Hanks stuff, who wrote a really great debrief piece about the history of our fascination with Mars this week, he went and explored a bunch of that, and found that, one of my favorite facts from that was, at the time that the Wright brothers actually launched the first 3 flights down at Kitty Hawk, there were major newspapers in New York City on the West Coast when the report was released, who published editorial pieces debunking it and saying, this isn't true. Manned powered space flight or air flight will not be possible for at least a century. And nobody believed it. And it's like, they were the jerks who came along and did it. So I think that applies a lot to what Mike is saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give us, like, what was the most fascinating thing that you walked away with, like, digging back into this story of Orson Welles? Like, what was the thing that, like, you were like, I forgot that, or like, what was just kind of an aha for you in doing that research?
Well, just like, it was the ramifications of it, right? The ramifications of what happened next. At least FCC Communications came in, and the legal team of CBS, kind of going in, they knew they had some issues. One of the things you couldn't do is you couldn't put a character or somebody to impersonate a president. That was like a liability. But what Welles did was very creative. He hired an actor who sounded like the president, and they gave him an official title. So think about it. If you're just like tuning in late and you hear this voice that sounds like the president, you're going to think this is a real thing. So all these little loopholes he did, they kind of, because going in, so like, just to give you guys some background, going in, Welles wanted to do something really special for Mystery Live Theater. That was the program. And because it was Halloween's Eve. So he wanted to do something different this episode. So they took the 1898 story. This is when the book came out, by the other Welles, no relation. They took that and they, basically dissected it and came up with a way to present it, in which a way they haven't presented anything on the show before. They ended up doing it like a real, like, live news broadcast. And it went through, from what I read, it was just really chaotic, everything leading up to it, but they nailed it. I mean, once it came out, and the ramifications, obviously the panic it caused. But at the end of the day, I think kind of Welles knew what he was doing, because next thing you know, Hollywood's calling him up and he's going from broadcast radio to doing Citizen Kane. So for me, the interesting thing was seeing how it actually played well in his favor, even though it could have potentially been a lot worse. Even though it was a PR nightmare for CBS, it ended up doing wonders for him professionally.
Right. No, it's an amazing story. I remember my father told me about it when I was little, and I was just like blown away by how people reacted to it and what the experience was for those who had just tuned in. For those of you just tuning in here, we are going to be going live with the Mars landing very soon. We've got Jazz Shaw here with us. We got Mike DeMonte, and drum roll, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one of the founders, the one, the only, Micah Hanks. Micah, how are you?
Oh, there's Micah.
That old guy, yeah, you can't get rid of him. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Big day for spacefaring, and a quick hi to Mike and my old buddy Jazz Shaw. How you doing, Jazz?
Doing good, Micah. You and I promise you, after this landing is done, we need a phone call sometime in the next week because I got some good stuff for you.
Oh, man. Doesn't he always?
Let's get together.
He always does. So, yeah. Anyway, big day, guys. Great to have everybody here. And, hey, you know what? Both Mikes, but especially Mr. Mataluni, you're doing a fantastic job manning the helm here today. Live coverage for the debrief. So we're all real excited. Great to have everybody here.
Yeah, it's super amazing. And, you know, just the kind of the cast of characters who is writing for the debrief is so powerful. And I'm really enjoying the opportunity to kind of bring you all together and talk about what we're working on here for Mars Week. So, Micah, you've got an amazing interview or an amazing article that you wrote this week about man's fascination with Mars throughout time. Can you kind of give us the debrief of that article?
Certainly. I mean, the long story short is humankind has been fascinated with the red planet, really going all the way back to antiquity. I mean, really, I would say probably prehistory. I'm sure that ancient astronomers, we have a word for this today, archaeoastronomy, where we look at what ancient people were doing in celestial alignments with, you know, earth and mound works and things like this. Obviously, there were astronomers in the ancient world in prehistory, which is quite fascinating. And I don't doubt that they would have looked up at the sky and noticed, that one star gets brighter sometimes, and sometimes it's not as bright. It's red. It obviously has a different color than other celestial objects. And naturally, over time, humans have ascribed different kinds of agency to things that we can't explain. And so when we look at things like stars, in the ancient mind, they meant a lot of different things. We can go all the way back to ancient Sumeria, and we have, of course, the associations, probably one of the earliest associations with a war god, Nergal, but it's most famously associated with the, of course, Roman god of war of the name Mars, which we now have for that planet. So, you know, humankind has really maintained a fascination for the red planet for a long time. And it's easy to see why. I mean, it's really, in a lot of ways, even to the naked eye, it's unlike anything else you see in the night sky.
Right.
Micah, isn't it true that at one point people were really confused by the fact that Mars, because it goes into retrograde, appeared to travel across the sky, and then suddenly, occasionally, it would stop and go backwards, and then it would go forwards again. You know, what were the early interpretations of that?
You know, I think that had been noticed at least as early as the Babylonians. I think the Babylonians were aware of the fact that the retrograde orbit, again, based on where Mars is in its orbit relative to the Earth, it can appear to be going one way or another. And so ancient astronomers were paying enough attention that they absolutely picked up on that too. Yeah.
That's freaking amazing. It's extraordinary when you really look at the history of astronomy and what we understood when. What kind of did you know when you were researching this article, Micah? Like, what was the thing that stuck out to you most about like our fascination with Mars? Like, was it recent? Was it ancient? Like, what was really powerful for you when it came to our modern concept of like actually deciding to go look for Mars?
Well, I mean, I'm always fascinated with the ancient stuff, but this really kind of bespeaks other Mike's article too. And fantastic job, by the way, Mike. That was really great what you did there. If you look in the back right here in my studio in the background, I've got War of the Worlds on vinyl hanging in my studio. So obviously, you know, I've got the same sort of affinity. I'm sure Jazz has that too, being a history nut like I am. But, you know, that is a big one. But more broadly, really just the thing about Mars, I think, that has long fascinated us is not just the fact that it's a weird looking orange reddish kind of thing in the sky. It is the idea that, and in fact, this is still a possibility, that life might either have existed there or that life might exist there. And so with War of the Worlds, you know, we have the earliest introduction of the word extraterrestrial in print. I think it was hyphenated. And, you know, Wells was actually referring to the craft when he used that expression. But I mean, he introduces that term, at least into popular literature. Some sources say it originates earlier. But you can't deny the fact that we've got Martians, we've got an invasion by aliens from space. And that idea about whether or not there were inhabitants on the red planet, that goes back much further. So really, the all-encompassing fascination for me is really, we want to look at another planet and say, is there somebody up there like us? Are we alone?
Right.
How
What would
cool
you-
is it that we might be the aliens in this case? Unlike H.G. Wells, instead of them coming here, we're about to go there and possibly wipe out their remaining life that
look,
might be.
You have to acknowledge right now, the Mars invasion of 2021 is currently underway. I mean, the United States and NASA, we aren't the only ones going up there. You know, I do the weekly intelligence brief newsletter that we send out from the debrief. And last week, that's what I actually covered. In fact, I postponed this week's drop. It's going to come out later this afternoon just because I figured, you know, we'd like to see what happens before the email goes out. But last week, I was talking about the fact that this is a great invasion of Mars of 2021. We Earth alien invaders are going up there, and we're landing our craft, and we're putting them in orbit. Yeah, it's quite a show.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
One of
sorry.
the things I was going
Go
to
ahead.
add to that, you know, how we're invading Mars this year. It's funny. One of the movies I mentioned in my article that was kind of inspired by kind of the Mars mania was this really obscure cult classic, John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars.
Right.
It's basically just about that. We go to Mars, and I believe they're using it as prisoners. They're putting prisoners there, and they're trying to terraform it. And what they end up doing is literally raising the ancient spirits of the Martians. And it's a really cool movie. It's really underrated, kind of under the radar. But it's you know, and now it's happening in 2021. We're now the aliens going there.
Right. What about Bradbury? I mean, Bradbury was one of the original, right? I'm like, he
Right.
really he went deep into Mars. What's your favorite Bradbury, Micah?
Oh, well, the Martian Chronicles. In fact, I recently reread that. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was just looking to my left. If you could see off my camera,
Yeah.
I have the Martian Chronicles within reach, and I can reach over and grab it.
You know, I mean,
It's one of my favorite books.
there were, you know, it's incredible. And in fact, actually, what's really interesting about it to me is that it had been a bunch of independent stories that he married
Yeah.
into this novel, which worked incredibly well. But it was social commentary, it was science fiction, it was great. And you know, I think that it was published. What was it, in the late 40s or early 50s, wasn't it? So I mean, it was among the first significant Martian science or speculative fiction, as it was often called in that era. But again, science fiction about Mars and Martians actually predates Wells and goes back into the latter part of the 19th century, but it didn't really, I mean, take root until the 20th century.
Right. Until Wells.
And another guy named Wells, of course, driving that point home even further on Halloween night.
Right. It's so amazing how all of this kind of spiderwebs together. It's really extraordinary, man's fascination with the red planet. Can you tell us, Mike, you mentioned earlier that you do a weekly newsletter. There may be people who are watching right now who are not on that newsletter who are dying to get on it.
Yeah,
And they
How
should
can
be.
they do that?
yeah, you definitely will want to sign up. It is the Intelligence Brief, and that goes out every week, usually on Thursdays, although if there's big news, sometimes we move it around and everything. It is written by yours truly, but of course, I'm always linking to articles. I've linked to some of Mike's articles that he's written there, as well as Jazz. We got a lot of different stuff in that newsletter, and I'm always trying to improve. You know, it always is unto itself a story. It features its own feature piece each week, in addition to links to things that people don't want to miss, you know, things that are happening over at the debrief, some of Mike's podcasts that he's putting out, and also, you know, links to stories from throughout the week as well. So I mean, there's always a lot going on over at the debrief. That's a understatement, but
That's an understatement, my man.
Yeah.
So how do people sign up for the newsletter?
it's right there on the website. There's a pop-up at the bottom of the page that says sign up for the newsletter. We've also got a page. If you can't find that for some reason, at the bottom of the page, there's a link that tells you how to go and sign up as well.
That's fantastic. For those of you who
I'm
just
going to
joining us,
jump in for 1 second because
Yeah, go ahead, Jazz.
I just overran my time by quite a bit, and I've been reminded of another obligation, but I did want to stick around until Micah got here. I want to thank you guys for having me on. I'm going to be watching as the whole thing unfolds, but I do need to run, and I see you have enough support here, so thanks for having me on.
Jazz, it was truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the debrief. If you haven't checked out his article yet, it's coming out tomorrow. Make sure you go to thedebrief.org, sign up for the newsletter, and check out Jazz's article. And don't miss Mike DeMonte's article as well about Orson Welles. All right, I'm gonna pop you out here, Jazz. Thank you for joining us. So we've got Tim McMillan here coming up in just a few short minutes, which is exciting. I know Micah, you never get to see Tim, so it's going to be just a treat for you. I'm really excited. For those of you just joining us again, we're going to be covering the Perseverance landing here at 3:38 p.m. We should start getting some information back, and we've got Tim McMillan hopping on here in just a few short seconds. So let's kind of switch gears just a little bit, guys, and talk about the actual Perseverance landing. Micah, what do you hope to see come out of this? Like, what's your what excites you about this landing?
Well, I hope to see it succeed.
Right,
colleagues Mike and Mike, I think that is certainly a sentiment we all share. It is arguably, in fact, NASA has said themselves, this is one of the riskiest endeavors they have undertaken, really, in the history of the space program. Now, granted, it's not manned, and so that risk potential is out of the loop. But I mean, you got to consider, the billions of dollars that were put into this. Correct? You got to take into consideration. I mean, and I described it recently to someone like this. Imagine the sleigh ride, the 7-minute sleigh ride into hell, where you are from 300 million miles away trying to remote control the landing of a robot, a nuclear powered one, okay, on an alien planet that's landing quicker than the radio transmissions can actually make it back to Earth and let you know the status. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything more harrowing, apart maybe from being there myself. So I got to hand it to NASA. They are on top of their game. I'm hoping, but I'm also certain that things are going to go smoothly. Fortunately, the system that they have, in which they are able to essentially use a jetpack to stabilize and then coordinate the landing spot. They've done this in the past. I believe it was with Opportunity, if memory serves. And so this isn't the first time that they have actually managed to place, a rover on Mars using similar methodology, but this is definitely a little higher stakes in terms of everything that's going into this and what we stand to gain if all goes according to plan.
Right. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, basically, I just want to mirror what Micah said. Obviously, you want it to be safe first. Before we see any breakthroughs, you want to make sure it's safe and stuff. And the thing I don't want to see is anything that happened in War of the Worlds. That's what I don't want to see. I want to see anything associated with that. But real quick, just before I know my time's almost up, but I just want to say thank you guys again for having me, Micah. Thank you guys for also creating the debrief. I think it's just really cool, slick brand, and I really appreciate the opportunity to write for you guys as well. So thank you guys, and like I said, Michael, I think you're killing it on the podcast. So it's a great idea, and just the way you guys put Mars Week together, Extraterrestrial Week, it's really cool. It builds community, and I think this is a great opportunity. With watching Mars Live and getting people involved in the conversation. So I just want to say thank you guys again. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of Mars Week.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for everything that you do, Mike. I mean, seriously, man, it is an incredible asset having you a part of this, and thank you for being here for our live coverage too, man.
I appreciate it. I just appreciate the opportunity for letting me come on board and write for y'all. So I appreciate that, Micah. And Michael, like I said, thank you guys again for having me on, and enjoy the rest of the day. It's going to be cool.
Absolutely. Good luck down there, brother, and much thoughts for you and your wife dealing with what you're dealing with. So we appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate it, guys. See y'all later. Like I said, enjoy.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks a lot. We've got Tim McMillan joining us. Thank you so much, Tim, for being here today.
Tim, are you wearing earrings? Have you updated your punk rock look? Oh no, you've got your buds in. Oh.
Yes. No, I do have the beard going, but yeah. No earrings as of yet. Yeah. No, I slid in here just in time.
You did. I'm gonna. You guys chat for a second. I'm gonna flip to the live feed here. So make yourselves acquainted. You guys know each other, right?
How in the world
we have met?
Yeah. How in the world will we ever manage you and I having chat?
Yes. Yeah. How are you, brother Micah Hanks, sir?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. And again, I want to thank everybody, by the way, out there tuning in live and watching our coverage on this, what is truly a momentous occasion. We were just saying before you jumped in the chat here with us, Tim, that we hope that everything goes according to plan. I'm sure it will, though. The planning, the effort by the folks at NASA, You know, they are arguably the very best in the business. And this is just a unique time, not just for the American space program, but really for spacefaring in general. You got to keep in mind, we have seen in this month, within a short span of a few weeks, several actual missions to the red planet. And again, many would argue that what we stand to gain from the insights that Percy, I've started calling it Percy, but Perseverance, you know, the engineers there at NASA actually have nicknamed it Percy, and I just love that. But again, Percy can touch down and everything goes according to plan. We've got an astrobiology lab that is state of the art, you know, right there on board. We've got this Wright Brothers moment-esque helicopter, the first actual flying mechanism, you know, actual aircraft that we've ever put on another planet. So we've got all these different gadgets and you know, scientific capabilities that Perseverance has been chocked full of and sent up there with. So, you know, this is maybe going to be one of those crowning achievements of the new century.
Yeah.
no.
Wow. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Tim.
no.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say absolutely. I mean, it's incredible to see, you know, how much things have exploded in space in terms of interest and involvement. Obviously, you know, changes to allow commercial space enterprises are going to continue to push that. And in fact, it's incredible to think, and we'll, you know, I'm excited to see if he's able to achieve it. But, you know, Elon Musk is saying 2026, he's going to put people on Mars. And so, you know, it's easy to be like, okay, Elon, you know, did he say it when he was on Rogan, you know, smoking a little bit, or is he going to do it? But if you look at his track record, you know, here's a guy who has done stuff, you know, he has done it. And so it's really exciting. I mean, it's exciting with, you know, NASA going back to the moon and trying to build a persistent settlement on the moon. You know, it's bananas to consider how far we've gone in the last decade, and consider where we'll be in the next decade, and consider that God willing, in all of our lifetimes, who knows what we're going to see? Are we going to see space tourism? Are we going to see the potential that maybe we may do one of these live broadcasts from the moon? All three of us,
Right.
You know?
What are your thoughts? I mean, we were talking about this earlier about ethics in space. And so, you know, who is responsible for that? Because the second you count Elon Musk out is the second he fucking blows your mind, excuse my language. But that dude is amazing. And the ability that he has to follow through on an engineering feat that nobody thought was possible is extraordinary. But as you know, we had the conversation with Avi Loeb the other day, and I asked him about this, and he said, absolutely not. Elon should not be the person who's making the ethical decisions moving forward. What do you guys think?
Well, you know, I'll just jump in really quickly and mention that if Avi has taken issue with Elon, it might be in part due to the fact that some of Elon, and again, I'm a huge supporter of Elon Musk, and you have to recognize the incredible job that he has done with SpaceX, you know, especially during the strains put on spacefaring and really the space program during the pandemic. But that said, he's also proposed some novel things, you might say, like nuking Mars, right, to try and melt the polar caps. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I mean, he had tweeted this some time ago, and it was rather controversial. And he got quite a good bit of pushback from people saying, no, that's a horrible idea. We don't need to take nuclear weapons to Mars. You know, if there are or were Martians there, you could only imagine what they would think when they see us coming up there and launching nuclear weapons into their polar caps. I mean, so maybe some have taken some issue with Elon's unique perspectives on things, but I still commend the guy. You know, you have to say, this guy, he puts his money where his mouth is and builds and does things that nobody else can.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. What do you think, Tim? What's your perspective on that?
No, I think it's a great question. And I think it speaks to the core of why we started the debrief. It was recognizing that life, technology, everything is moving exponentially. I mean, when you consider the difference between what life was like, again, 10 years ago compared to today, and, you know, just how dependent we are on information technology, and you're looking at the explosion of AI. You know, I've covered a lot of stories lately about quantum computing. You know, they just achieved the first long distance quantum teleportation via computer. And, you know, it's fascinating to look at that stuff and realize, when interviewing some of these experts, when I spoke to some of the team members who were involved in that project with quantum teleportation, and I'm saying, so what does this mean? What does the future mean? What's going to happen? And, you know, they're saying, we don't know. When you're looking at quantum computers talking to other quantum computers through quantum teleportation, we don't know what's going to happen. And I think that same thing says here in space. I think it's very easy for us to say, well, we'll have all these different space treaties. We'll all share Mars. We'll all share the moon. But history has shown that's not exactly how humanity tends to get along, unfortunately.
Right.
And I think it's a valid concern, especially one of the kind of major impetuses of going to the moon and setting up permanent settlements has to do with mining on the moon. Well, now
Right.
when you bring in resources and things, so I think that's a big reason why we started the debrief, is to pose these questions, because it's better for the public to have these things in their mind and try to work through both best case and worst case scenarios before we are there.
Right. You had a conversation. You had the opportunity to speak with some folks at Space Force. What are your thoughts? Like, where are they coming from that perspective, from the philosophical and the ethical viewpoints of space colonization? I mean, did you have are they even talking about these things yet, or is it purely we're just protecting satellites? Like, what's going on with Space Force? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and actually, just last night, it wasn't Space Force. I had an opportunity to speak to Space Command, and I'm not going to get in the weeds here by explaining to everybody, because it's kind of, a lot of people don't realize that there's a Space Command and a Space Force. Space Command being a joint forces command, much like Central Command, Africa Command. So it's made up of all the branches. But I was on a conference call with the deputy commander of Space Command, and it's important to realize with the Department of Defense, and that's I primarily cover defense stuff because I find it to be an interesting domain where a lot of innovation and new novel ideas spring forth, but yet there's this bittersweet conflict of what the purpose is these things are being designed for. So I think it's an area that needs both a lot of oversight, but a lot of interesting things can come out of. Right. But with the Department of Defense, their focus is on defense. And so you look at Space Force, you look at Space Command, and they're primarily focused on protecting U.S. interest in space, which includes satellite technology. They express concerns about China and Russia's development. Russia, twice, once in 2017 and then once just last year, tested essentially a space torpedo to take out satellites. And, it is a domain that unfortunately we have to pay attention to defense-wise. I think the militarization of space and not militarizing space is a great thing if everybody agrees.
Right.
Again, it goes into this little hard to get everybody to agree. And if we consider, how much of our modern day-to-day life is dependent on satellite technology, and we don't even realize it. But all the satellites go out, there's a lot of things that are going to go into chaos. And so their primary function is that, in addition to, other concerns into and not unlimited to extraterrestrial concerns. And that both means asteroids. And I was able to get an answer from the Deputy Commander of Space Command about their current involvement with the UAP, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena.
Really?
Yes. That was late last night.
Is this something that you're holding back on us for an article, or where are we at? Where are we at?
Well, no, I'm not holding back. It literally just came out last night. And so it's one of those things that, I want to make sure that I get a clarification on his answer before I report it out there. I think we all have a ethical responsibility to make sure we're sharing the best information. And so his answer, if I gave it to you now, would be sensational. But I want to make sure that that's the right answer, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. And I think that's one of the most important things about that we do here at the debrief. It's about getting the facts and getting the facts right and reporting on them and analyzing them in a way that is true and accurate. And I think there's just not enough of that happening that should be happening. So that's one of the reasons that I think it's such a powerful, organization. It's such a powerful, the journalism is so good because of that. For those of you just joining us again, we've got Tim McMillan here. We've got Micah Hanks. They are the founders of the debrief. They generally don't pat themselves on the back very much, so I'm going to do it for them. But we really appreciate what you guys have created here and the power of bringing facts and great analysis so that we can understand what's going on today and what's going on in the future. And we should be going live here in just a couple minutes. I'm going to go for audio right now. so we can observe this landing.
Yeah.
Entry interface. Perseverance is currently going 5.3 kilometers per second.
You guys hear okay?
Altitude of about
Yeah,
120
absolutely.
kilometers from the surface
You're
of
now,
Mars.
I understand it in the atmospheric reentry stage. The actual timeline, I think, is what is it? Gosh, less than 5 minutes right now.
Yeah.
The
It-
is now waiting until it begins.
it's
feeling
crazy
atmosphere
to consider when you're
go
coming
down.
at
Once there's
a
enough
planet at those
atmosphere, it
angles.
will start
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to, on 2 different occasions during my career, I was able to watch a space launch from the space shuttle. And I was also able to watch a landing of the old STSs. And I remember, on the radios, we could hear on the NASA radios, we were actually out there on the runway waiting for it to land. And I remember them saying like 5 minutes out, it just entered in over Texas. And we were at Cape Canaveral in Florida. And I'm like, holy cow, and this thing appears coming straight down and you're like, oh my gosh. But so it's incredible to just, you don't get that same appreciation. I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about watching these.
Yeah,
Seeing-
and the speed at which they're coming in. I mean, it's something like 12,000 miles per hour, something like that.
It's incredible. And I wasn't kidding earlier when I said that, I mean, they're moving so fast that Perseverance is going to be making its descent quicker than the radio signals can actually communicate back to mission control the status. And again, you've probably seen in the media, I think everybody has at this point, that 7 minutes of terror. They use this expression for the reentry right now. And again, we are literally looking at 4 minutes 5 seconds until they actually hopefully land without incident. But it is indeed very terrifying. And partly because of the fact that they are almost completely out of the loop temporarily in terms of what's actually happening up there, 300 million miles or more away. I mean, it's insane to think that we have the technology to pull this off, honestly.
And this is the positive side of AI here that we talk about, because this is literally the computer's going to take over. And what it's going to do is some incredible things, because like you said, Micah, they're out of real-time loop with this. And so this particular rover is going to, it's landing in a very precarious spot, very dangerous spot. It's going to do all the work itself to analyze the ground, orientate where it is, adjust itself to make sure it lands safely. And so this is one of those great instances where our advancements in machine learning, artificial intelligence, is going to it's going to bring some great breakthroughs for us to learn more. And this one in particular, where they'll be looking for, the remains of potential biological life. We may learn a lot from this mission. We may learn.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
We came from Mars.
That's a possibility. That has come up. I think all three of us have each spoken one-on-one with Avi Loeb, and this is certainly something that he is not only best known for, but he's very interested in. But even without having to see the actual microbial life, one of the most interesting things is the spectroscopy. We can see the spectrographic images from the Martian surface that actually give us an idea of the composition within the Jezero crater where the landing is going to take place, and this already indicates to us the presence of clays and mineral substances that would have to have had a aqueous environment at some time. Now, granted, this is probably billions of years ago, but yeah, we're very much looking at a situation where there was once water there. This crater once held that water. It was effectively a lake. We can see where the water flowed into it and also where some of it flowed out. And so it's very likely that if there has ever been life on Mars, this would have been the kind of place to find it. And so in the sediments there at the base of the crater, as well as along what would have been the ancient lake's shoreline, we're hoping to be able to use Perseverance to study those sediments, also some of the rocks and the regolith that have collected, because often, in fact, in the delta of the Mississippi River, we find within ancient stones and even modern stones microbial life that exists there. So if, again, at some point long ago, those conditions were similar on Mars, we very well may be looking at our best chance yet of confirming that there has been life on the red planet.
Right. And there's a debrief article that came out this week or last week, and it was about the life that we're finding in the Arctic, right? I mean, just extraordinary life that we thought we would never find. And so the tenacity that we were talking about this earlier, the tenacity of life is just extraordinary. So I remember when I was a kid, when my father was telling me about they may have discovered water on Mars, I was like, it's just one of those things that just it raises the hair on your arm because it's so exciting and it's so extraordinary. And I think a lot of people love the debrief and they come come to the debrief because we're really passionate about these things, and it's just extraordinary. Now, I do have a treat for everyone today, because not only do we have Micah Hanks and Tim McMillan, but we have the one, the only Ryan Sprague joining us. Ryan, how are you?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me. I'm deeply honored to be partaking in this historic moment with the three of you.
Well, it's
Man, we're glad you're here.
yeah.
Yeah. I got it going over here as well on the live feed, trying to live up to Mike's expectations.
Well, Mr. Sprague, you are probably aware that we are within 1 minute of what we hope will be a
It is dropped down to about a third of a mile, some about 4 kilometers away, it looks like.
Wow.
And so now, I mean, this is when it gets really tricky, because now it's trying to orientate itself.
Yeah,
now
right.
it's looking at the ground.
All right.
Ooh, we got some applause. That's good.
Yeah.
Great. So on the main feed, they're applauding. The official timeline has just ended.
Meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about 1 kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Look how tense that room is.
I know, they look so nervous.
We have
I'm nervous.
completed our terrain relative navigation.
Yeah, but they look so much cooler than
Meters per second.
gosh, what's
altitude
the
about
rover
300
in
meters
2016?
off the surface.
12?
Mars.
No, was it that far back?
The
last
most
one
recent?
they
Yeah,
Yeah.
what was that?
2012, though, yeah.
Yeah. When they
We have
first,
started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane.
yeah, the sky crane, when they first tried the sky crane.
We've lost
Yeah.
direct Earth tones.
Ricardo says, is the feed real time? They communicate with Mars in real time. So it's what, like 11-minute
It's
delay?
11 minutes.
Yeah.
About 20 meters off the surface.
So whatever has happened has probably already happened.
Already happened, right?
It got swallowed up by a sandworm.
Now, in the visual we have
Signals from
on the
MRO.
feed, of course, we have touchdown. Presumably, if all has gone according. Let's listen in here.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely.
Yep.
We did it!
Ready and seeking the sound of top flight.
Wow.
Wow.
Success by NASA. Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the future right here. The future
Yeah.
now.
Stage has flown away to a safe distance. Perseverance is continuing to transmit direct through Mars upon orbit.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
I know, me too. I'm shaking.
Congratulations. Let me just say here on behalf of the debrief team, our sincere congratulations to the folks at NASA and everyone who played a part in this combined effort to achieve what at one time was quite literally impossible. And it just goes to show that when you put your mind, your effort, and the best that technology can afford us, you put all that to work, nothing is truly impossible. We literally have placed a robot, a nuclear robot with an astrobiological lab and a helicopter.
Yeah. It's crazy. And
Wow.
it's cool because we've had an opportunity. We've been very fortunate to talk to a lot of these people with JPL who are involved in this program at different points, including those who built the actual helicopter that'll be emerging from the rover. The first off-world aerial vehicle. How about them apples? And so it's cool. You realize how much work goes into it, and you realize that this is stuff in planning that goes on for years, and you only get one shot. And so, but it's a real testament to how much work that they put into it. And I'll say, it seemed like everybody was pretty cool, though. I think that they were pretty confident, and so well done. Absolutely. I got to say, this is probably the first of many more. I know they have a lot of more missions on. And so it's great to see these successful missions, because that is only going to continue. What's next? Where do we go next?
I'm really excited for the images that we're going to start seeing, the transmission of those, because the camera qualities that they've got on this thing are just spectacular.
Right. Yeah. And, like Michael was saying earlier, when we're talking about looking at the remains of biological life, I think one of the things that is often forgotten is that we may learn a lot about ourselves and how to not end up if there was biological life on Mars, there's no evidence that it still exists, at least not in the form that we would define it.
Right.
So what happened? What went wrong, and how will that affect our future? And I think that was one of the most fascinating things when you talk to people. I had an opportunity, that's another article that I have coming out, discussing NASA's technosignature program, which is a whole new, brand new breaking field. The idea of technosignatures didn't even exist until a couple of years ago, but now they're going to put it in the program manager's word, they're going to hunt smart aliens, not dumb ones. And so they're looking for technology. But it was interesting because he talked a lot about the fact that by doing this, we can learn, about our own civilization. How old is a civilization if we see them? How have they been able to sustain themselves? What of environmental pollutants are they putting off? And we can learn about ourselves as much as we can aliens or extraterrestrial life.
Right.
But it's exciting.
Looks like we've got the first
Is that the
images.
first
That's the
images?
first
Yeah.
image coming in from
Wow.
Perseverance. Man, oh man, this is amazing.
Incredible. I mean, I don't think I would ever get tired of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
No. I
I guess
mean,
Elon Musk has his way. I mean, it could just be a few years before we're up there ourselves. We were back at headquarters. Tim and MJ and Steve McDaniel and I. We were passing around the Mars Pass, right? Tim was telling
a
me,
boarding pass. Yeah.
"Got a Mars Pass, buddy."
We got a Mars. We have a boarding pass, man. Heck yeah.
We got Melon, you ready to go?
Yeah, all day long, man. And dude, can you imagine that? I think that's maybe not everybody, but I know me. Just to be able to go up and see. I want to know what it's like to look down on Earth.
Yeah.
To get this appreciation, and I think I think everybody here has probably heard the late Edgar Mitchell talk about that kind of epiphany of coming towards it and seeing the pale blue dot, to steal that famous quote from Carl Sagan.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts a lot of things in perspective. It was one of those things. I hope space tourism comes sooner rather than later. I hope it's affordable. I want to see kids take field trips because I think that's one of those things when we get this appreciation that, oh, wow, we're really small in terms of the grand scheme of things. And would that maybe make us treat each other a little better? I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you hear that from astronauts, right? I mean, that's something that is truly profound, is when you're looking at this blue dot from space and it has no boundaries, no borders, it is one Earth. And so there's this truly extraordinary philosophy that comes out of understanding the oneness of life on Earth and how we treat one another and what we can possibly do if we put our minds together. But NASA, just brilliant in what they've done, and the mathematics and the science behind something like this is just extraordinary. Ryan, you wrote an article recently for the Debrief for Mars Week about the Antarctic, the life found in the Antarctic. And how that relates to Mars. Can you give us a quick breakdown on what that research was like for you, what you found?
Yeah, Mike. Well, just to clarify, there were 2 articles I think that dropped this week. I did not do the one on life, which I'm a little envious of. But what's amazing is
can we blame MJ?
yeah.
No, that was mine. Yeah, that was mine.
That was Tim's.
One.
Yeah.
But
I wrote kind of a sister piece to Tim's. I think only a couple weeks prior to the discovery in Tim's article, we found this extremely rare mineral that's really only been commonly found on Mars. When we were back, with NASA Opportunity, they found this mineral called jarosite, and it was built into the dust and everything on Mars and deep in the craters, such as the one where the rover just landed a few minutes ago. And recently, researchers in the Antarctic, they actually found this same mineral deep within the ice cores of Antarctica. And it was not something they ever thought would be there or would form there. So it was pretty exciting. I got an opportunity to talk to one of the head analysts on that project, Giovanni Barcolo out of Italy. And he said it was a huge surprise for us. We did not expect to find this. And look, this mission, this successful mission right now of this landing is going to be a big part of Giovanni's work moving forward. Once we collect those samples on Perseverance and get them back to Earth some way, somehow in the future, we'll be able to determine, was there once life on Mars, where these ice cores or glaciers possibly were on the red planet? And what does that tell us about Earth, and what does that tell us about Mars? And Tim said it so beautifully. It'll tell us a lot about what our future may hold in the past of Mars. So I think it's just an incredible discovery. And then only a few days or a week later, Tim dropped this article of they finding this life in the Antarctic. So, I mean, this Mars mission could not have come at a better time. We're making all these amazing discoveries, and I dare call it synchronistic, but I think it's incredible.
No.
Yeah, it really is. Tim, so do you want to go a little bit more into your article?
Sure. Yeah. And Ryan put it beautifully. And I'll speak a little bit about my article and why it's so exciting, all of these discoveries. But yeah, researchers with the British Antarctic Survey literally stumbled upon it. They were boring holes almost 1.5 miles into the Arctic shelf. They were trying to test sediment samples, and their drill bit hit a rock, and they said, holy shit, because the rock was not supposed to be there. Right. And so they drop a camera down, and lo and behold, not only do they find a rock, but they find a rock that's covered with biological life. And when you say that, people are thinking, oh man, this is going to be awesome. Like, this is the Antarctic UFO base we've all wanted, or this is going to be like mermaids and sea nymphs going down there. But no, it's sponges and other, static life forms. But the biggest thing here is these aren't supposed to exist. And that was, when speaking to the researchers there, the British Antarctic Survey, they said this is not, it's, nearly 500 miles from the open ocean. How are they getting food source? Life is not supposed to exist down there in any way, shape, or form. Freezing temperatures, we can just go down the list. But like Ryan said, it opens up this door to where now our ideas of how life can thrive, how life can exist, how life can evolve, are completely different. It changes because you're looking at a very inhospitable climate like this, but yet life exists. And the thing that's fascinating about all of that, so whether it's Mars, whether it's Antarctica, and I just discussed this. I'll have a piece coming out about the Fermi Lab just measured quantum space-time. And so to put that in perspective, a grain of sand would be comparable to the size of the universe compared to quantum space-time. So we're talking about the smallest thing. When I asked the lead for researcher at Fermi Lab, so what's so cool about quantum? Why are we studying quantum stuff? And he said, it's literally makes up everything. So we're studying everything. And what we're realizing when we're seeing this and what the discoveries they make with quantum space-time, or whether the discoveries that they make in the Antarctic, or the discoveries they're going to make on Mars, there's so much we don't know. And that's very exciting. It should be exciting. There's a lot that we don't know here on Earth. There's a lot that considerable amount we don't know out in space. And I think that, it's very easy. Psychology, they call it the law of recency, where we believe at any point in time we've reached the pinnacle of our knowledge. And most of us go by our days, humdum, and, you drive to work, or, you get stuck inside your house or apartment because of COVID. You don't realize that we don't know shit. And there's so much more that we can learn. And that's really exciting for me. I don't know. I think that could be scary for some people, but to me, that's so exciting because there's so much more out there. And I always say, as long as there's something new to learn, like tomorrow exists, if we knew everything, well, what the hell? And I guess we're done. Hang it up. Bring on the dinosaur asteroid.
If I may just add to what Tim's saying there, and then I unfortunately have to jump because, at the debrief, our work is never done, and I'm literally editing the post-dated late arrival intelligence brief newsletter that's going to go out after I jump off here with you guys. And then also we've got another article updating everybody about what just happened. So I just want to thank you again, Mike Mataluni, and of course, Ryan, and Tim, my brother, my friend, my colleague, my cohort, my sanity. Yes. Many days, and certainly the guy.
That's scary. If I'm your sanity. Oh,
really,
back it up, guys.
We have such a great team, and it's such a pleasure to be able to work with all of you. But I'll
It
add
is.
what Tim is saying. If there's one consistency about scientific discovery throughout the ages, it is that every time we think we have gotten a good grasp on things and that we have essentially, put together, we have assembled most of the pieces that construct the picture we have of reality, and we think, okay, this is pretty much it. One consistency throughout time is that there's always something that comes along that upsets and that overtakes, and it causes us to have to reconceive of everything that we thought we knew, or at very least incorporate new knowledge into our existing batch. I remember John B. Alexander a number of years ago talking about attending a conference where he said a physicist took the stage and said, we are, as scientists today, about 99% certain that we have discovered 99% of all the significant discoveries in the universe. And now what science does, our job as scientists, is we just tie together the loose ends between all those things that we know already. And I have to agree with Dr. Alexander's contention, which he expressed in his book on this. He had said, look, to think that we know everything is the height of arrogance. And it shows really where I think the limitations of human thought often are. And with what we see today with the landing of Perseverance and what we see with, aspirations to get to Mars and to put humans there, imagine for a moment that we think we have unraveled all of reality. And right now, the furthest humans have ever gone away from Earth in terms of us actual humans going there is our lonely little planetary satellite, the moon.
Yeah.
We haven't even gone to other planets, and yet we think we have unraveled all the mysteries of the universe. I got news for you, ladies and gents. And like Tim said, there's an awful lot about our planet we still haven't figured out, let alone everything out there. Now, we can do a good job looking through telescopes. We can do great work from here on Earth. But we've got a lot more to do, and we've got a lot of places to go. I got places to go. I got to get out of here. But listen, guys, thank you. Thanks to all you guys. And you're doing a fantastic job with the live coverage. This is an exciting time, certainly one I think we will all remember. Cheers.
Yes,
Micah, thank you so much for
Micah.
joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And Tim, back to you as Micah gets out of here. I just wanted to, the idea of quantum mechanics and quantum computing and the direction that we're going in now is so extraordinary, and our complete inability to understand what goes on in the black box that is quantum mechanics. But to see the technology coming out of it is just extraordinary. What do you like? Are you excited or are you scared? Like how are you feeling about this?
No, I'm stoked because there's something. When you look at classical physics and quantum physics, so it's great because classical science, classical physics, it explains the macro world, the observable world, everything that we see. And we're like, okay, we've got this. We understand gravity. We don't really know what the hell that is, but it works, and we can measure it. We can do all this. And then when you look at the quantum level, and Dr. Hogan put it, he's right. That it is literally everything is made up when you can get down to the smallest level. And the scary thing is we can only look at the smallest level we can imagine. And so there'll be more. And to realize that everything, everything's around you right now. When you get it down to the atomic and subatomic level, it doesn't jive with how the world works and what we observe. That's bananas, because I think the thing that it takes away is that we don't really understand reality. We have this idea of reality, and this is another area that kind of speaks to some of my core interests, which is cognitive psychology. That's kind of my academic background, and I've got some great interviews that I've done. I need to get on paper and get out there about some of the latest breakthroughs in consciousness and understanding and neuroscience. So real academic science is being published in major journals like Nature, where you understand we don't know what the hell is going on. We have this idea, the mundane. To me, that's very, very exciting. It's very, very exciting because you said if this was it, it's kind of boring. So this idea that anything is possible, and as we look at how they're examining the quantum world, they just keep building upon it. And that was when I asked, so we've measured quantum space-time. What's next? And they're like, well, we're in totally uncharted territory. We are sailing to the new world with no map. We don't know.
Which is fantastic. And you brought up the point earlier about how we can only measure what we have tools to measure. And that's based on our imagination. Like our ability to measure the quantum world is literally based on what we can imagine. And then that imagination has an impact on that observation, which is truly mind blowing to really quantify that. Because when you come from Newtonian physics and when you come from a mechanistic worldview to transition to this extraordinary quantum world, it's just so out there. I want to welcome Chris Plain right now because Chris is the freaking man. Chris is the backbone of the unsung hero of this live broadcast today, because he has just done an extraordinary job in making me not pull the hair out of my head that I don't have, preparing for this and making sure it was great for you guys who are watching. So Chris, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Figured you guys needed someone handsome on the broadcast with Tim and Ryan there. So I thought I'd jump in and bring my looks to bear, as it were. So,
well, we really appreciate you doing that, and we've got some very special things to talk to you about. Tim,
Sure.
You can stay as long as you want, but I don't know how busy you are, so please feel free to stay or go or whatever you want to do. You're good.
It's like 10 o'clock in Germany. I'm wicked drunk. Who cares, man? Let's go.
I knew it.
love
As
it.
soon as he started talking quantum physics, I knew he was drunk.
Yeah, I just started making shit up. Roll the tape. Yeah.
All right, Tim, hold up the real UFO photo. Now's your chance.
Right.
We're
this
all
is
live.
it. Hold on. Let's get I've got Roswell wreck.
Right?
Here. I'm surprised. And wait, I've got to give a big shout out right now because I just figured out how to look at the actual comments. And Signal, who's in the comments, I got to tell you, great dude, man. Always, he's a big part of the kind of UFO community, UFO Twitter, you name it, science community, man. So big shout out to you, man. I really appreciate you. You really have given a lot of support to the debrief, and you bring up good, cool questions, and you make it fun, and I think that's what it's fun. So I just got to see the comments. So if there's any other shit talking up there, I'll just not scroll up. But I just saw all his stuff, man. I think he brings up great stuff.
The only one
So big
shit
shout out
talking,
to you.
the only one shit talking was MJ Banias, but I don't know if he might be gone by now.
He's gone.
Where
Yeah,
is
the
it?
king shit talker.
Where's
that guy.
where's Chunk at? What happened to these other guys might not know about the Goonies references in the debrief. We'll have to clue them in sometime.
I'm a huge Goonies fan, man. That movie was like my childhood.
Oh, big time. Big time. Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Well, that's how
so-
that's how the debrief was formed, by the way. We Michael knows this. We talked about this, but yeah, that was the idea. Was always, who do you want to bring into the debrief? What do you want to form it? And we said, man, it's very simple. Find a group of people that if you found a map to One-Eyed Willie's treasure, you would want to go with you, that you would trust that wouldn't steal the treasure, that you would have a good time, and that's how. So if you're interested in joining the debrief team, man, we'd love to have you. If you'd like to go on the adventure to One-Eyed Willie's treasure, man. And MJ, God bless him, we love him. He's the one that's going to bring in Chunk. That's what we said. He'll show up, baby Roof, MJ. But God bless him. I love him. He busts his ass, and thank God he's here.
Yeah,
That he
and
does.
yeah, and I just want to thank everybody who's joining us today. Again, I mean the ability for us to come live to you and bring you this Martian landing experience has been truly extraordinary. And if you want to stay up to date on the debrief, make sure you go to thedebrief.org. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Micah Hanks writes that every single week. It's amazing. And follow us on Twitter at debriefmedia.com. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about what you brought to Mars Week?
Sure. I had 4 stories. One came out right at the end of last week about the United Arab Emirates had their first vehicle a probe enter the orbit of Mars called the Hope orbiter. And the reason that's big is, first of all, just only 4 countries have ever put spacecraft in the orbit of Mars. So obviously the US, Russia, China, and India did it a couple of years ago. And this makes them the 5th. So, and that's a country, the UAE is 9.9 million population. So to give a comparison, North Carolina has a little over 10 million people. Florida, where you are, Mark, Mike, has twice that. So
Yeah.
it's a huge accomplishment. First country in the Arab world to do that and join the ranks. So that was a huge piece.
Right. That's extraordinary.
Yep.
That was-
The other three all kind of rolled out this week. There was one about just kind of the history of the search for life on Mars, and I touched on starting way back in 1976. Viking landers, Viking 1 and 2, landed on different parts of Mars, did a little shake and bake of the soil they scooped up, and they found signs of life. And one of the original team members, Bruce Levin, wrote a piece for Scientific American just 2 years ago. And the title, I don't remember the exact words, but it's something to the effect of, I believe we found life on Mars in the 1970s. So I kind of took us on that journey through the article, starting with him, through the various rovers, Spirit, Opportunity, Pathfinder lander with Sojourner, Curiosity rover, and all the way up to the current one, all the steps, all the things that have reinforced that, all the water that's been found, all the evidence of past habitability, and even the ESA orbiter, European Space Agency orbiter, picked the spot. They zeroed in on Jezero Crater, where this rover is landing. So it's really been 40 plus years of multiple countries, multiple craft working together to get us there.
That's extraordinary. What's the biggest difference from the previous rovers? I mean, one of the things that I find so fascinating is, some of the previous rovers, when they came into land, they're just in these huge bubbles and they just drop on the surface and it just bounces, right? This is what we did today was a huge technological advance. Like, what are you finding to be most fascinating between Perseverance and previous rovers?
Well, the biggest difference, first of all, the first rover to land was Sojourner, and all it was a technology demonstrator like the helicopter Ingenuity, where it was just proving that we can do it. And that thing was tiny and just rolled around on Mars a little bit just to prove it could work. As a lot of people probably followed Spirit and Opportunity, they were smaller rovers. They were in those balls you talked about, where they landed and bounced and the ball would deflate and they would come out and cruise around Mars. As a lot of people probably know, those were both planned for like 90-day missions, and they ran for I think 8 and 10 years respectively. I mean, really long missions. These last two, Curiosity, the one that we put down a couple of years ago, and this one are the ones doing this new method of landing. Everyone's mentioned NASA's video, the 7 minutes of terror. And that happened with the last rover because it's a lot bigger and a lot heavier. It's basically like an SUV size Curiosity. Perseverance.
Yeah, it's like 2,200 pounds or something. Just insane.
Yep. And this current one is equally as big and has tons of instruments on it. 7 different instruments, has over 30 cameras. I think the Curiosity had maybe a little over 19 or 20 cameras. And then of course it's carrying the Ingenuity helicopter, which is just a huge technology demonstrator. And that was one of the other pieces I wrote about.
Damn.
That was a really cool piece too. Yeah. That was really cool. It was awesome to get to talk to the guy who helped build that. I mean,
that's what was so amazing is I thought I was lining up a 2-minute interview to write an article, and I got to spend 30 minutes on the phone with Jack O'Karras. He's a engineer and a roboticist on that team. And he's one of the guys sitting there right now in that headquarters watching the results live. And he talked about just all the steps that went into that thing. And the quote I've seen more than one place, but I hadn't heard it till he mentioned it to me, is that this will be a Wright brothers-like moment on Mars. This will be the first time an airborne craft, and we've had orbiters around Mars that pick up a lot of information from space. We have rovers on the surface picking up a lot of information there. But imagine an ocean where you have creatures on the ground and you have boats on the surface, but you have all this middle area that we just aren't able to explore, much less peaks, areas that rovers just can't get to. And if this Ingenuity is successful, that opens up all that area in between for exploration, not just on Mars, but on places like Titan, Ganymede, Enceladus, all kinds of places we're looking to explore.
That's going to be cool.
I think the other thing too that Chris stressed in his article, guys, was this isn't just like a historic moment for space exploration or NASA, but for robotics in general. I mean, we've seen incredible developments in the past year or so. I know the debrief covered, like the dancing robots and everything, these very human-like robots that are able to do things that these, robots that were on tracks like a tank wouldn't be able to get over certain terrains. But look, we just landed the Perseverance in one of the rockiest, most volatile areas on Mars. And we did that on purpose because we have the technology to overcome that. So I think it's amazing. Just like this mission isn't just for, space exploration. It's for robotics. It's for mineralogists, glaciologists. Every kind of scientist you can think of has a stake in this mission and things they want to come out of it. So I think it's incredible. This isn't just about picking up a couple rocks and bringing them home eventually. This will change so many different scientific fields. It's so exciting.
Yep.
Absolutely, Ryan. And I have, it's funny, I thought about this the other day. I picked up my kids from school, and I have young kids. So oldest is 9, 7, and 4. And I realized, man, probably the 9-year-old. But it occurred to me for the first time, holy shit, what if they never have to get their driver's license? Because we have autonomous cars now. Like we have these driverless cars, and you realize, wow, like, they'll never, am I going to be looking back and be, yeah, they used to drive your car? What a loser, and so it's incredible. But you're absolutely right. The robotics, that is something that I think we're going to expand on, especially because that is a field that is blowing up and is being really guided right now by the Asian market. And it's interesting how these things are guided. And it's we're going to see, you heard it here first. Maybe not. Some other people have probably said it, but you're going to see an explosion in household robots soon because just the population, and especially in South Korea and Japan, which are really dominating the robotics fields right now out of necessity because they have more elderly than they do young. So they're developing robots to help care for the elderly. And with that, we're going to see just incredible things. We may be there close. We're not far behind the Jetsons, where we're going to have our household robot.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Yeah, it reminds me of the of Neuralink a lot, because the robotics that they're experimenting with, the ability to help quadriplegics and utilize these robots that are actually going to be doing the surgery on people is just truly extraordinary. And Tim, you brought up, and Ryan, I just wanted to say, my God, what a great point about the interdisciplinary domains and all of the connections between all of this is just so important and powerful. And we talk about this at the debrief a lot about, this kind of, there's so much over specialization in science and technology and medicine. To be able to bridge those gaps is really important to us, and to make sure that we're understanding the big picture and not the little parts. But you brought up, Tim, about your kids and the fact that they may never have driver's license, because self-driving cars, you're looking 10 years down the road and we're going to see an extraordinary amount of autonomous vehicles. And it reminds me of the fear that people had back in the day when you had an elevator operator, right? And it was up to that elevator operator to get you safely up to the top floor, the third floor, the second floor. When they got rid of the elevator operator, people were terrified to get in an elevator and push that button themselves. So, you can see that. You can see that in relationship to self-driving vehicles. People are afraid. But once we get over that critical mass of people and we see the data and we're like, you know what? This is going to be safer than human beings driving. We're going to look back on the past and we're going to not be able to imagine having driven ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, and I think, like you said, it changes scary, and all of this stuff. I had to share a study that recently came out with my wife because all of my kids now have iPads. They can use them better than I can. I think my 7-year-old sent the iPad to the smart TV. I'm like, you can do that? What sort of voodoo magic are you doing? So I've turned into that dude, right. I'm like, well, you whippersnapper, how do you use this? But it was kind of the satanic panic where these kids are on the iPad too much, it's going to rot their brain. Recent studies have come out saying, no, that's not true. They're using all these different programs that are actually greatly improving their learning. My 9-year-old, he's a little special. That's something. Don't want to say it like that.
I'll bleep that out later.
Right. Thank you. He's unique in that he gets on YouTube all the time and he watches all these TEDx's, or he watches all this stuff. And so he's coming in here talking to me about really complex scientific stuff. And it's great because when you're seeing at that age, and I know you interviewed Avi Loeb, and he was big on this, about this curiosity of children. And that's something, you know, back in my psychology days, it was big because you talked about it. The kids aren't bound by this kind of narrow view. And so you see him, you know, he'll watch these videos and he comes up and he's thinking of all sorts of ideas and stuff that nobody's told him yet. Well, that's just silly. That doesn't fit with our modern paradigms. And maybe it doesn't work, but it's that, you know, innovative thinking. You know, that's why our tagline is boldly going, rebelliously curious. Is we're like, screw that, man. Let's investigate it and think about it. It works out most of the time. There was this great time that he told his younger brother, who's 7 now, that someday the sun is going to explode and destroy the earth, right? And so he starts crying. Right. He starts crying. The 7-year-old. He doesn't want to die. And he's like, I say he's like Richard Dawkins. I mean, he's like 9 going on 60. And so he's like, no, Gideon, you don't have to worry. By the time that happens, you'll already be long dead. So now he's crying because he doesn't want to die.
Much more reassuring.
Yeah. And so his final is like, look, no, you don't have to worry about that. By the time you have to worry about dying, you'll be so old you want to die. And so finally, but still, this is not like none of this, like, Gideon's a normal 7-year-old and everything. Like, he's not little Dawkins here. And so finally he's all freaking out. And his older brother Kemper's just like, there's nothing I can do with this kid. If he can't come to her reality, I'm done. Like, I'm out. And so there is the positives and the negatives there, but they are. I think that children, I think that's important. I think that the education level, we have to understand that. I think that's where we see a lot of the economic issues we have here is, getting people encouraged and fostered into technology and innovation, and realizing that these are the areas where the world's going to be. You brought it up earlier. How societies change, and you're either going to be able to use these technologies or you're not. And so it's good. I think that's one of the things we see it's more readily accessible to people of all ages. It's just people like myself that are like, how do you use this damn internet?
Right. But you bring up another really important point, and that's the next generation, and understanding how we allow our children to think for themselves, to think critically, as opposed to, I mean, we are just coming out of a time where school was all about facts. You learn facts, and that's the most important thing. I got this, guys. I don't need facts. I can get whatever fact I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. What I need and what children need is critical thinking skills. And if we can really improve our education systems to incorporate that and understand that that's just as important as we innovate and evolve as human beings, then we're in a good place. My concern is that the education system doesn't move as quickly as it should when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah. Mike, can I play off of that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I think it's interesting too, like these autonomous missions we're doing and these AI things and these booms in technology, they lead to, I think, the fear in most humans that I'm not going to be relevant. My trade is no longer relevant. My job is being done by a robot. And of course, that's a significant fear for everyone around the world. But, you also, there's always that hope too of, as we move forward and there's less menial tasks to do, whether it's, bagging groceries or pumping gas, which are extremely respectable jobs. I've done both in the past.
Same here.
Well.
Yeah.
That if we can move past that and get to a point where there's some sort of renaissance where we don't have to think about working 55 hours a week, where we can now think about what comes next and where can we go and how can we explore and how can we create new art and, all these other things that we can enjoy in life other than, pushing
grind.
that timestamp 9 to 5 every day. So I think there's a lot of good things that come out of these technology booms. And in these autonomous missions prove that we don't have to send someone to Mars first to see what's going on. We can do 20 missions before that to figure out what we want to figure out before we actually put someone there. So I think it's exciting. You know, that fear can lead to amazing things. So we always fear change, always.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, lack of
Couldn't
control.
have said it better
right?
myself, Ryan.
Yeah. No,
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that, Chris?
I just said I couldn't have said it better myself,
Oh.
Ryan. I mean, you know, science is the light that's going to keep the darkness away. You know, this is what's going to bring us into centuries beyond our lifetimes, 22nd, 23rd, 24th centuries, where they're facing much more complex issues around AI and robotics and things like that. And yeah, this is it, man. This is why we're doing this. This is why I'm doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
We have a comment. Humans will
And hey,
find new
can I
meaning through
just
life.
say one more thing, Mike,
Yes.
before you kick us all off here?
Yeah.
As the old guy in this group, I was born 24 days before men walked on the moon, and I didn't think that 51 years and change later I'd be sitting here live broadcasting as a rover lands itself on the moon, as it opens itself up, puts a helicopter all down by itself. That helicopter and that rover pick out its path. It flies those missions, and the controllers back home just occasionally send signals and updates to keep it on the right path. I mean, think of that. Think of that arc in my lifetime alone, much less that same amount of time backwards from my birth, a little more, is the Wright brothers' first flying. In that 118 years, look where we've come.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much for joining the debrief. It's been truly extraordinary. Thank Tim, thank you, Ryan, Chris, and everybody who joined before. You guys have all been truly extraordinary joining here today. If you haven't subscribed to the debrief, do that. Click the subscribe button, click the bell so you know whenever we go live. You don't want to miss an opportunity to join the likes of these amazing minds. And if you haven't had the opportunity, if you haven't had the
just want to
opportunity,
hang out with Ryan because
Right. Yes.
I got
Right.
plenty of free
Can hang
time. Come to New York, guys. Come to New York.
we were talking the other day in the group chat, and Chris was saying that his wife was watching one of MJ Banias and I's interviews, and she was like, oh my God, you guys, she thinks you guys are too cute, and then you're like, hopefully she never sees Ryan.
Oh, man, she sees Sprague, I'm done.
He's a handsome man. That's great. You're right. He's a handsome man.
Thank God my girlfriend keeps me humble.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You didn't
If he
seem very
wasn't
humble in
talented,
that
we'd
chat
still
thread.
have use for him. Right?
That chat thread will never
And
see
Baby
the light of
Yoda, Baby Yoda back there has gotten huge reviews,
Right.
by the way, in the cat room. Just so you know, Baby Yoda is everybody's a fan, man.
We're not allowed
Really?
to have actual pets in New York City in our apartment, so this is as close as I'm gonna get. So yeah,
Hopefully, Disney's probably going to sue us now for trade. No, I'm just kidding. Disney, please don't watch it. Cut.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
sorry guys.
Somewhere John Favreau's going, its name is Grogu, not Baby Yoda, it's Grogu.
Yeah. Oh, yes. God. So it's me.
What if that's
I've got
what
to
we find on Mars? What if that is what we find?
Well, and somebody brought it up in the chat. I'll never find it
Right.
now, but they brought up a great point because that we have an idea of what alien life is going to look like. It usually looks like us, 2 arms, 2 legs, but we really don't know. And I think the Antarctic discovery brings up a good point. They're sponges there. So who knows if maybe there's life there. And in fact, it has any Martian life in that area just had their first UAP sighting.
Right.
And they go, what the
We are now the UFOs. Yeah.
Right.
That's
They
a
just
good
go back
point.
to their sponge community and like, dude, you're not gonna believe what I saw. And they're like, yeah, sure thing. No. Yeah. There goes Nutty McNutterson.
Mike
over
interviewed
there.
Mike interviewed an astrobiologist that's part of this mission for NASA. And one of the points she made in that interview, I listened to it, is that we're going off what we know here, what we know on Earth. There may very well, we just may not even have the right equipment there. We may not even know what to look for. So each one of these are steps along the way. Yeah, there could very well be complex life forms there that are just of a nature that we don't know how to look for them.
It is inherently alien. And we are limited to our understanding. So yeah, I think if nothing else, it's cool to think maybe some Martians just had their first UFO sighting. How do you guys like it?
Exactly.
Now
Somebody's
they'll have
writing
Do you
Disney.
think they'll share the
cover up,
picture
right?
on the internet?
Yeah, heck yeah. They probably have a YouTube, and there's gonna be debates and raging fights about it. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I'm looking forward to it. Somebody needs to tap
Oh.
into that channel.
Yeah, Mars Twitter. Goodness.
Blurry
Yep.
pictures of a tiny
Just a
helicopter.
seagull. It was a Martian seagull. Yeah.
That's right.
It was ball lightning. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining today. It's been truly a pleasure. For those of you who want to stay updated with the debrief, make sure you go to thedebrief.org. Follow us on Twitter at Debrief Media, and and make sure you follow these guys individually. Get Tim, Ryan, and Chris. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch y'all on the
Mike.
flip side.
Good
All
job,
right.
Mike. You
All
killed
the
this
time.
show,
Yeah.
man.
You killed it,
2
man.
weeks of work to
Awesome.
get ready for this. You killed it. Well done, Mike. You killed
Thanks,
it.
guys. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.